1 2 1 2. One two one two. Mic check. Hey, can y'all hear me out there? Hey. Against all odds. 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 Against all odds.
All right. Hey, welcome into the Rise and Grind Morning Show. I'm your host today, Will Rock. We're going to be joined with Riley O'Brien and, of course, the co-host each and every day, Eric Rintamaki. It's a loaded Thursday. We were off yesterday, so we have a few things to talk about. We're going to get into quarterback rankings today. A lot of rumors surrounding the Detroit Lions and some trades. I did reach out for comment yesterday to a couple of executives within the NFL, and I'm happy to say I did get one comment. It may not be exactly what we're looking for, but man, there's actually a little bit of speed picking up here on these trade rumors. So let's get into it. Let's get the guys in this morning, and let's get rolling here on Thursday. Detroit Lions news and rumors. Gentlemen, Eric, Riley, good morning.
Good morning.
So,
good morning.
Yesterday, a lot of stuff flying. We expected this, right? You're exactly a week out from the draft, and now you're starting to hear some rumors about the Detroit Lions and what is such a heavy and deep roster that they may end up having to move off of a couple of players. Could be draft picks, could be just to save compensation with the draft cap moving forward, or it could be nothing at all. And so Mike Payton was one that highlighted an article the other day. The trade rumors started to pick up, and it's very similar to the exact thing that I was saying a couple of months ago, where Kirby Joseph was hot on my mind, looking at the Lions forecast, looking at the future draft capital, salary cap, that the Lions are going to have to make some very tough decisions. And so we're going to talk about that here in just a few moments. I'm going to go turn on some lights, and while I'm doing that, Eric, why don't you kick us off today with the first topic of the day, and then we will highlight quarterbacks today as well. I know we're a little bit behind. I'll probably try to get in tonight to do wide receivers. But Eric and Riley have something here on Caleb Williams, so let's get rolling on NFC North news.
All right. So Caleb Williams says he's shed a few tears in his rookie season. The Chicago Bears weren't expected to be Super Bowl contenders during Caleb Williams' rookie season, but the former number one pick was likely hoping for a better result than the team's 5-12 campaign. Speaking with Brian O'Keefe of Esquire, Williams admitted that the sheer amount of losing he endured during his rookie season was something he's never had to experience before, and it took a toll on him. Quote, "I'll be honest with you, I've never lost this much," Williams told O'Keefe. The Bears lost 12 games in 2024, and Williams admitted that some of the losses later in the season had significant impact on him on multiple levels. Quote, "When I got home, I got in my bed, I just dropped a few tears, and I was just so beat up mentally, physically, and spiritually," end quote. It was certainly not an easy season for Williams, playing behind an offensive line that on occasion resembled a revolving door. The 23-year-old was sacked 68 times. Listen to that, 68 times. That ranks tied for third all time behind only former Houston Texans quarterback David Carr in 2002 when he was sacked 76 times, and ex-Philadelphia Eagles star Randall Cunningham, who was sacked 72 times in 1986. Man, 86, that's so long ago for Randall Cunningham. I remember him like it was yesterday. The wear and tear of the 17-game season, paired with the frequency of defeat, reduced Williams to tears at points throughout the year. But it also served as an important aspect of his development. Quote, "To go on a losing streak, to be in this position, and to be at the helm of it was definitely important for me. Just being able to see how I need to be when times are bad," end quote. Williams said, indicating that the 12-loss season will ultimately benefit him in the long run, as he knows what it's like to operate while mired in a losing streak. Williams and the entire city of Chicago will certainly be hoping for a more fortuitous 2025 season following the year of hardship the franchise endured. And then, Riley, you had a little something about Caleb Williams as well.
Yeah, so we're talking about I love this because every time Caleb Williams is going to be mentioned on this show, I know it's going to be divisive. I am the known and stated Caleb Williams. I don't want to say fan. I love his style of play. I love his talent. I believe in his talent. I know you guys are much less warm on him than I am. As far as his emotion, I don't knock him for that. We can't say it's fine when Dan Campbell gets emotional and cries at a podium and then say, oh, Caleb Williams, you're not supposed to cry. It doesn't surprise me. We saw him do it in college. After my Utah Utes beat him one time, he was in the crowd crying. It's a little surprising, I guess, for him to be so open about it. But another aspect, something that he said recently, and it must have been in that same conversation, Eric, that you referenced with Brian O'Keefe. He says, this is Caleb Williams saying, I think the NFL game has become very friendly. And I don't necessarily want to be friends because I want to keep that competitive advantage. So to me, on a surface level, sure, I think it's reasonable to have a mindset where you're not friendly with the competition. Your purpose, obviously, is to beat those guys. They are in the way of you and your goals. I do think, however, it's a little more nuanced. I think a quarterback of a team has to be a leader, and that goes beyond having the ball in your hands every play. I'm sure Caleb Williams is receptive to and open and friendly with his teammates, but it's a fraternity. We talk. We know Stafford and Matt Ryan had a good friendship. It just seems to me there's 30 of these guys in the world that have starting QB1 jobs. There's nothing wrong with being friends with them. You can train with them in the off season. You can be part of the fraternity. You can be part of the club. You can be friends with them. Obviously, on the football field, you're keeping that competitive advantage. There's no friends. You're there to win football games. So I guess between those two, let's kick it back to Will Rock. What are your thoughts, Will? Do you think it's a little more nuanced than that with the friendship aspect of things for Caleb Williams?
Well, before I get to the friendship part, let me speak to the crying part for a minute.
Sure.
So there's nothing wrong with obviously having a little bit of emotion built into, your gameplay, your competitive spirit, or obviously how you feel, after a win or a loss. To defend Dan Campbell, he cried, or had some wet eyes at the podium after a major loss. Like after a major loss, whether it was the NFC Championship game, where we clearly seen Dan frustrated, worried about the future, because he, like what he said is, we're not coming back here again because it's so hard. Like he initially thought it was going to be very tough to get back the next season. He was right, because we didn't. We didn't get back to the NFC Championship game. We got bounced in the second round of the playoffs, which was our first game. And I don't remember him crying after that game, but there was a couple of times throughout the season where he was a bit emotional. And I could probably count on one hand over the last 4 seasons, maybe where it's been visible to the public. Caleb, from what I understand and remember, really hasn't cried on the podium per se that I know of, or that's been reported. And I don't watch his post-game press conferences unless it's against the Lions. Here's where I have the issue. You're crawling. I mean, did you guys read the quote where he said that he crawled into bed after the game and then he cries? I'm sorry. Like, either he has a little bit too much estrogen in his body, or I'm just going to put it out there. Like, you don't crawl into bed and cry. I mean, very few and far between have I ever done that in my life, and that's usually after a death, loss, something extremely crazy. I don't even know if I've really ever done it in my life, but I guess there's nothing wrong with having emotion. But I would say that if you're crawling into bed and crying about a loss, I don't know, what does that tell your teammates?
Yeah, the difference is he's not doing it with his teammates. He's doing it by himself because he's selfish.
Well, I don't know if it's so much the selfishness. I mean, he is, but I think that I shouldn't say he is. Allegedly, reportedly, he's been reported as being somewhat selfish and absolved.
That's why he doesn't want friends.
I guess for me, it's the fact that you're jumping into bed crying after a game instead of manning up and jumping into the tape and figuring out a way to get better. I wouldn't spend any time wasted crying about something that you can't fix, right? Spend the time on things that you can fix. You can't fix that you just took an L. As far as the relationship thing and him saying that he doesn't want to be friends, look, the NFL is a fraternity, and this has been a fraternity for decades. There is less than 0.5% of men, that will ever have an opportunity to play in the NFL. Might even be less than that. It's probably less than that. And to be able to build and cultivate relationships within the NFL is what it's all about. And as a quarterback, you should be at the forefront of building and cultivating relationships, not only with your own teammates, but the guys on the other side as well. Now, for the 60 minutes, from the time that ball is first snapped to the last play of the game and it goes to triple zeros, you are all competitiveness. You're not friends, right? There is no friendship between the white lines during the game. But after the game, yes, you should be reaching out. And, I hate to even say it, just like politics, right? You should be reaching out across the line and trying to identify and build a relationship with the guy across from you. Because eventually, some point in the future, you might be on the sideline with them, potentially. And now you've alienated everybody against you. And then also, what about doing work off the field? What about business deals? If you alienate yourself from all of these people, they may not want to bring you in on things. Vice versa, you may want to bring them in on things. And they're going to be like, look, dude, you wouldn't even shake my hand. So I'm out, to use the, what's that? The Sharks. What's that show about the Sharks? Shark Tank. To use a Shark Tank reference. I'm out. You know what I mean? I think that this being a fraternity and a brotherhood that it is super important to build relationship. It does not mean that you're not competitive. Yeah. It just means that you have a human side to you, and there's nothing better than building a good relationship. And win, lose, or draw, that relationship should still be the same. I hear it often, at times throughout the season that, or even in the off season. I mean, like tight end U, right? All these tight ends go work together at Tight End University. Not only is it about the brotherhood and the fraternity, it's about helping the community, right? It's about helping themselves. It's doing good things for the community. So these guys are all competing against each other on Sundays. Now, they're not offense versus defense, right? It's tight ends on both sides of the field. But they're building that fraternity even more, and so much more that they've kind of isolated themselves as a tight end group, just like there should be a quarterback group where they're often doing things together, or the wide receivers are often doing things together in the offseason. I think that it's one of the special parts of the NFL that you are going to be sorely mistaken if you don't take advantage of it and build it. So, I just think that, to your point, Eric, I think he's selfish. I think that he's immature, and I don't think that Ben Johnson's going to help that. I think that Ben Johnson is probably just as arrogant and cocky as Caleb. That's why they're going to end up being two peas in a pod, and they're probably both going to sink the ship together. But it's not that I don't have respect for Ben for what he did in Detroit. I'm not going to turn coat, against Ben that way. I don't like some of the things that have been done, but I don't see him being a person that is going to be able to elevate Caleb Williams from doing the right thing. I think that it's going to just stem more selfishness. I guess maybe that's a bad take, but I just don't see anything different right now.
I think it's a great take. I love what you said about the timing of when Dan Campbell did it. I remember one of them was after the Vikings game when he said, what was it? They kicked a field goal or they punted when should have just gone for it, needed a yard or whatever the case was. It was a crushing loss. So the timing of it's a big thing. And John Desage did make a great comment in there. He said Ben Johnson's going to test him, and I was going to bring that up and ask you guys. But obviously, Ben Johnson believes in his talent. But if you're Ben Johnson, the timing of Caleb Williams saying this, are you thinking like, man, I need you to be like, have your emotions behind closed doors. Don't air it out publicly. Like, I need you to be emotionally a warrior, not. wallow self-pity.
Again, I will put it this way. There's nothing wrong with being emotional. There's nothing wrong with being in your feelings. Far often men are known to hide. Men are known to keep everything bottled up, and then it just explodes. And whatever you want to take from that, whether it's a negative, bad things, tend to happen when you bottle things up. You need to talk about, the things that you struggle with. I think that's the most important thing, is to talk about things you're struggling with, whether it's with a therapist or whomever. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's good to find someone that you can trust. It's good to find someone that you can confide in. That's why it's always more important to have 2 ears, like you were given 2 ears for a reason, right? So it's better to listen more and talk less. Now, on the morning show, I run my mouth, but I'm supposed to. So that's what it's about. But after the fact, I listen. I listen to the comments. I listen to, the fans, and I listen to what everyone's talking about. And I always appreciate, and I'm thankful for everyone else's opinion, because where would we be if we didn't appreciate what everyone else thought? That would just make you narcissistic, I think, in a way that if you can't have an open mind. Caleb, I think, is just digging himself into a hole right now that maybe it turns around. Maybe it doesn't, but we'll see what happens this season. So what's up next, Eric? We got some news out of Green Bay.
Yeah, so Green Bay Packers trade plans are being sabotaged by Jair Alexander. The Green Bay Packers reportedly decided they want to move on from cornerback Jair Alexander. General Manager Brian Gutekunst mentioned a possibility of Alexander not playing for the team in 2025, and he wants to get something back for their investment. According to a report, Alexander is hindering trade efforts by refusing to cut his salary. The Packers reportedly had a potential trade deal early in free agency, but Alexander's salary demands stalled it. Teams interested in Alexander appear willing to wait for the Packers to potentially cut him instead of trading him now. Alexander, as a vested veteran, would become a free agent and could negotiate with any team if cut, which he reportedly prefers. The Packers have limited options due to Alexander's stance and other teams knowing their desire to trade him. The report concludes that Alexander is sabotaging the Packers' plans to trade him this offseason, and he likely won't play for Green Bay in 2025. And from what I remember, he has to be a post-June 1st cut, so the Packers don't get super nailed with money. But I'm telling you, I don't see him playing for the Packers in 2025.
Riley, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. I mean, this is a guy that, whenever I've thought of Jair Alexander, he's like one of the best players for Green Bay, but it's kind of seems like he's put him in a lose-lose situation. But these are the things that during the offseason, I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't know if they make amends or, they probably don't even know where he's going to end up playing now. So, yeah, I'm 50-50, but it does seem like he's kind of got him in a lose-lose situation right now.
So, so there's a couple of comments in the chat here. One was, like, why would Alexander cut his salary? Well, if you want to be traded, if you don't want to, be part of the Packers in 2025, and obviously the team and yourself may not be aligned, I think the best way to facilitate a trade is, to be equitable towards all sides. There's not a lot of teams that are willing to invest in a high salary and bring in a player that potentially has, some marks on his record, right? The unsportsmanlike conduct, the unnecessary roughness penalties, the ejections. There's been plenty of things that has happened to Jair Alexander, during the first few seasons of his career. He was one of the best in his, first 2 seasons, and then he's slowly kind of just fallen off by the wayside a little bit. But I think that, when you're a little bit more equitable to both sides in trying to find a solution, whether it's to stay in Green Bay, clearly this is a salary cap issue. May not be a performance issue necessarily, other than the fact he maybe hasn't performed as well as they would have hoped. When was his breakout season? Was that 2022? I think was his breakout season, if memory serves me correct.
21 or 22.
Yeah, and he just hasn't been the same player since. And I think that his record has been, mirrored a little bit in just too many on-field issues. So I think that's why Green Bay is probably looking to move away from it and move on from him. But if he's not willing to budge on anything, it's going to be tough for a team to trade for him. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, the Packers are going to want something. The Packers are probably going to lose, right? Which I'm not, like, I'm okay with that. I think that, if they don't end up getting as high of a draft pick for him, it is what it is. Sometimes you just have to be willing to cut your losses and move forward. You most likely will be better for it. So I think that at this point, whatever is going through Jair Alexander's head, he's just making it difficult for the Packers, and he's probably going to remain a Packer if they can't figure out. Maybe they cut him. I mean, I haven't looked at his contract and where it really lies as far as if they cut him, release him, or whatever. I'll do that real quick. But I'll shoot it back to you guys, Eric, on any more thoughts on this situation.
Yeah, his biggest problem is that, for one, he's got an attitude. And number two, he's just not on the field. When he's on the field, he performs. When he's not on the field, he's not on the field. And 9 times out of 10, he is not on the field. And Packer fans are fed up. The coaching staff is fed up. They keep thinking, oh, he's coming back this week, and then he doesn't come back. Oh, he's coming back this week, and then he doesn't come back. It reminds me of kind of the iffy deal. So if Fatu Melifonwu, when he would hurt his pinky finger and wouldn't play in the game, that's kind of the same thing going on in Green Bay with Jair Alexander. If he's not 100% healthy, he's not getting in the games, and it's frustrating fans. It's frustrating the management and the coaching staff, and I think they've just had enough of his attitude. They've had enough, and they want to move on, and they're going to end up just cutting him.
So I guess to get a little bit more granular on the situation, it was 2022 in May of 22 that he signed an extension. It was 4 years, 21 million on average, 84 million overall. And he just hasn't been the same player. And since then, he's been suspended for a game for conduct detrimental to the team. He forfeited $60,000 in salary for that instance. And then he had another $11,000 fine for an excessive face mask against Arizona. Those are the penalties that carried fines or the issues that carried fines. But there was other things that have gone on for him. But he has not been the same player since he signed this deal. And that's the same thing that, I've warned about even our own players, like with the Lions, that, you got to be careful about handing out these big deals. One, when the player's injured, or two, maybe that player hasn't done things consistently for at least 2 seasons, and you're taking a risk. And that's why I don't see Brad Holmes taking those risks. So again, it may not be the most sexy takes in the world, but at the same time, it's a calculated take where, I see certain things that should or shouldn't happen. If I were sitting in that chair making that decision, that's what I would do. You may not agree with it, but in this case, for Jair Alexander, looking at his contract, there was a potential out in 2025 for the Packers. It would leave them with $17 million in dead cap. So if I were to, let me go in and trade him real quick. So if I trade him prior to June 1, they will have a $17 million cap hit this year, and that's it. There would be nothing left after that. That's a huge cap hit for not having the player on the roster. If you do post-June 1 release, then they would only have a $7.5 million cap hit this year, $9.5 million next year. So, at the $16 million or $17 million, it would be spread out over this year and next year. That's a lot easier to manage. So maybe there's a deal that gets done, and it'll be a post-June 1 trade. Otherwise, and again, I don't know this. I apologize, and I haven't researched this, and I should have by now. Can you trade a player with a future trade clause, meaning, yep, I'm going to trade you on draft day for XY picks, but you're not going to get said player until June 2nd. I don't know how that works. I probably should know by now. I just haven't looked. But if they can do something like that this weekend or next weekend, then yeah, it makes sense.
Yes. In the NFL, this is just a quick search on that because that's such a good thought, Will. It just a quick feedback on it from what I've typed in. It says the NFL, in the NFL, a team generally can trade a player who has a future trade clause in their contract, but the player has to agree to the trade.
Even if they don't have a trade clause?
Yeah. So it's almost, yeah. The no trade clause gives the player veto power, meaning they can refuse to be traded. So if that would still apply, I guess, but yeah, that's a good thing to point of clarification to get. But it goes back to the roster roulette. It's one of the things that since I found this show, mixologist, roster roulette, these things that are stuck in my head now. Because even a year ago, if you just said, hey, I mean, hell, even a month ago, if you said Green Bay's just going to cut Jair Alexander, you're like, no, you don't cut a player like that. But you have to weigh these decisions, especially when you start looking at, we just get a guy that we can replicate 70% of the production and pay him, a heck of a lot less money. Those are all things that go into account, obviously.
I think that's part of the process. So, hey, good morning to Booner is in the chat this morning. And just a quick reminder, guys, and ladies, if you want to get ads off, the best way to get ads off, and we support you in this, is to just simply like the stream. So it just takes 2 seconds, when you're showing up to the stream, hit like real quick before you enter the chat. Otherwise, I think you have to step out of the chat to like the stream. But as long as we get, at least 75% of likes based on who's in the stream. So if we have 100 people in, we would like to see 75. Our goal is always 75 likes. We will turn off ads for you. And our big goal is to do that, within the first hour. I'm also going to start something new, which it may not happen next week because we got so much going on, but maybe the week after and all the dust kind of settles, is going to be comment of the day. So we are going to do comment of the day, and it'll be in the comments of the live stream after the show, as well as during the show in the chat. So we are going to pick just some random comments. We're going to write them down. And then at the end of the show, we're going to do, or a certain time of the show, we're going to do a poll. And then that's where the fans that are in the chat are going to be able to vote. And so we're going to do that all month long. And then at the end of the month, we're going to take all of those names that we compiled for all of the daily winners, and we're going to spin the wheel. And they're going to win a prize. And it could be a jersey. It could be Rockhound merch. It could be Lions grab bags. It could be signed mini helmets. It's just going to be a surprise on whatever you get. So if you want to participate, man, the time is now more than ever to participate and make sure that you like the stream. And then also make sure you're subscribed. Because if you're not subscribed, you're not going to know when I do pop-up live giveaways. And you won't be able to win certain prizes. So on draft night, we want to get 1,000 people in here. I know it's a lofty goal. We had half that, a couple seasons ago. But we're giving away over $3,000 worth of stuff this year. Last year was 10 jerseys. This year it's tickets to the home opener. It's 4 Aiden Hutchinson jerseys. We've got raffles for Gibbs jerseys, the new number 0, and a whole bunch of other things. Signed Kirby Joseph football that's worth $250 right now. Anywhere you look, the signed mini helmet's worth about $225, and it only costs you $5 for a ticket. Get a ticket, you might win. So anyway, have a lot of fun with it. We'll see you guys back here in just a moment with more goodies that we're going to talk about. All right, so Eric, what do you have next on Travis Hunter?
So Travis Hunter says he will retire if he can't play both ways. The Colorado wide receiver / cornerback Travis Hunter has indicated he wants to play both offense and defense in the NFL, just as he did in college. Hunter made these comments to CBS Sports, stating that he expects any drafting team to allow him to play on both sides of the ball. Hunter also expressed his belief that he is one of the best players in the draft class and would pick himself first overall if he could. This stance contrasts with comments from Cleveland Browns general manager Andrew Berry, who said the team would prefer Hunter to focus on defense if drafted by them. They have the number 2 overall pick. Hunter's ability to excel on both offense and defense in college was a key factor in his Heisman Trophy winning campaign. And the Browns will need to consider Hunter's desire to play both ways before potentially drafting him at number 2. Despite the potential conflict, Hunter's talent could still warrant a high draft pick, and the Browns could attempt to work out his role after the draft. In my opinion, we were talking before the show about this, and it's my opinion too that whatever team takes Travis Hunter, the Browns, um, they get to decide whether he plays offense or defense and how much he plays of each. And if they say, well, you're going to be a corner and we're not putting you out on offense, he might have to wait until his second contract or his second team or his third team to be able to do that, before somebody actually gets him a chance to play both ways. So he might not be able to have his cake and eat it too. He might just have to get in line and do what he's told. He's you know, in the largest, biggest job interview of his life. So they're offering him a job. It doesn't necessarily mean he gets to play both ways.
Riley?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because when I was going through the article as well, from what I read, Cleveland Browns general manager Andrew Berry did say that he believes Hunter can play both ways at the next level. Eric, I think you hit all the main points there. You can understand the desire that Travis would have to play both ways, but is he thinking longevity? Is he thinking, and if you have to choose one side of the ball, are you not going to go with the one that, you could ultimately get paid the most in? I guess from what Travis has said, he's only talking to teams that are entertaining or at least open to that idea. And so my thought to this was, okay, well, Will, Eric, if you guys are GMs, like, Will, if you're a GM of a team, are you going to say, yeah, that's fine, man. We'll have you play both ways. But then once you draft him and he's on the roster, then you kind of have him by, he has to fall in line with what you're saying. He's not going to retire, right? He's not going to stop playing. Are teams genuine about letting him play both ways? Or do you think teams are just, general managers are saying that now and then get him on the team and then just figure it out and make him kind of decide, like, yeah, I've got to pick one or the other?
Oops, we lose Will.
When there's a will, there's a way.
Oh, we might have lost Will. But yeah, I think the same thing, that Travis Hunter, he can say that he's going to retire if he doesn't get his way. Kind of like Caleb Williams did last year, saying that I want part ownership of the Bears or I'm not going to sign my contract. Yeah, that didn't happen either.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That's a good point.
these players, they don't realize how much control they do not have when they get to an NFL team. These are billion-dollar companies, and they run the team, not the players. And the players, they learn that pretty darn quick once they get drafted.
You know what's funny, though, about that statement, that the players don't have control? If you really think about it, I mean, it's just like our own politics to a degree. We do have the control if we exercise our voice, right? So if these players come together and they want change, all they have to do is organize a sit out. Now, obviously the NFLPA, quote unquote, their union, if you will, tries to help negate those situations from happening by the collective bargaining agreements that they put in place. But if they really want to screw up the NFL, man, organize a sit out. So I think the NFLPA and the NFL tries to keep these guys happy as much as they possibly can. The one thing that I would say is I think that and I've got kind of pissed about this last year. I think the minimum that these guys should make is too low. It's too low right now. I think that the bottom end guys getting paid, they should never make less than $1 million, and they should get a guaranteed, $500,000 or whatever, even just for coming in and playing, one game or, being on the roster for X amount of months or whatever it is. Because these teams, they play their own version of roster roulette, right? Where you can kind of play with guys in their contracts, with the way that their contracts are facilitated. by bringing them up, sending them down, bringing them up, sending them down, or cutting them at a certain point, and then they lose out on bonuses or this, that, and the other thing. The good teams don't try to do that, but some teams do that often. And that's why I think that there needs to be a guarantee, just like the NBA or anywhere else, or, you know, they need to have a guarantee that they're going to get regardless of what happens. Their body's on the line. You know, it takes one hit, one moment, and their career's done. And, I mean, you just saw, who was it that just retired the other day, albeit maybe a little bit early, and it's because of the injuries that he suffered. It was a Lion. Who was it that just retired? Kaminsky. Yeah, Kaminsky. I mean, he's been in the league, I think, almost 10 years, or 7 years, whatever it was. And that injury he suffered last year was just too much. So it just takes one moment, man. And these guys are changed forever. My breakfast this morning.
He was preseason or like a practice or something, wasn't he? Kaminsky, where he got hurt?
Well, it was during training camp, I believe, or preseason,
Yeah.
last year. Okay, real quick, we're approaching 9 o'clock. Let's get into. Well, you were talking about Travis Hunter. I didn't get my take on the Travis Hunter deal.
Yep.
I don't know if either of you guys said this, but my take this morning when we were off air was, I think that he's going to be promised the sun and delivered a moon. I think that all of these teams are saying, yeah, of course you're going to play two ways. Of course we want to see you, grabbing 100 balls and 1,000 yards a season, and then also playing 100% of the defensive snaps. It is so unlikely to happen. Look, this is the NFL. This is not college. This is not high school. I've heard it from whether it's Todd McShay or Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or Mike Garafolo or Peter Schrager. I don't care who's saying it. How in the world has Deion Sanders, whether it was at Colorado or at Jackson State, been able to get Travis Hunter involved in both meeting sessions, defense and offense? And how has he had enough time and the cerebral, cortex here to be able to do this? It's because it's college. You can dumb it down so much. Yep, you're going to run these two, choice routes. And on defense is defense. I think he's probably spent more time in defense than he has in offense, as far as meeting rooms considered, because on offense, you can just tell the guy to run a couple of routes, and you don't really have to understand, the depth of the scheme. But at the NFL level, yeah, good luck with that. These schemes are so deep and so confusing. I mean, look at JMO, for instance, right? He, being a college standout, performer, comes into the NFL, had the entire first year off for the most part, and then he gets in the last 6 games of the year and still didn't know the playbook. And I mean, that's what was said. That was what was reported. And that's why he was struggling a little bit. If he had that much time to learn it, and I'm not saying that Travis Hunter can't do it. I honestly don't know his mental capability. But I would say that to have that much time and for JMO to still be scratching the surface, I think it's going to take a lot for Travis Hunter to be able to be a two-way player. I would say that if it were me, I would be a receiver before I was a corner. And that's because of the money. I think that he'll get paid way faster as a receiver than he would a corner, as long as he has a really good quarterback tossing him the ball and he can get implemented, into the game plan. I think he's a little light though. Isn't he like a $180 or something like that right now? I think he's a little light.
He's pretty slim, but you're exactly right on that, because I remember reading about that on JMO, that it was kind of easy at Alabama because it was just like you can improvise. He
was a streakster. That's all he did is run post routes.
Haul ass. Yep, go get open. But you're right. Imagine you're a GM or a head coach or a teammate of Travis Hunter, and he's a star receiver, and then you throw him out there to play some snaps at defensive back and he tears an ACL. Like you've got to do what's best for the team. And then again, it goes into longevity. I think you're right. Receiver would be the way to go for the money, but it's going to be fascinating to see, man. He's an awesome talent, obviously. And I'm excited to see where he goes, because is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 5? Is it, usually I feel like by now you have a pretty good idea on the first at least 2-3 picks, but I just don't know this year how it's going to shake out.
Yeah, so Elizabeth LaValle in the chat says playing both ways is a fast way to get hurt. And it is. It's not so much about, the NFL is not about if, it's about when you're going to get hurt, when you're going to get nicked up, banged up, scratched up, bruised, but fatigue. And when fatigue sets in and you can't protect yourself as maybe you were at the beginning of a game, that's when injuries happen, especially as a receiver. You're going to end up getting targeted, by some of these defensive backs or middle, or the linebackers over the middle, depending on what you're running. Look, I think that Travis could step in and be a great number 3 wide receiver and getting in on a handful of plays. When you're running 11 personnel, there's an opportunity for him to be out there. But if teams are running 12 personnel and you've got only a couple wide receivers on the field, then he's not really needed as much. So it really depends on which offensive scheme he goes to. And then defensive wise, is he really the number 1 corner? I don't think so. In this draft class, they have him as the number 1 corner. I honestly see some of the other corners in this draft that are better than Travis Hunter. I think that he's just put up some really good tape, and I think that teams and analysts are enamored with him playing both ways and playing pretty well, playing both ways. But that doesn't mean he's going to be the best. And yeah, he might be number 1 on consensus top 10, boards, but it doesn't mean that he's going to, be the best cornerback in the next 3 seasons when you go back and look at it. I think that there's other corners that are going to end up being better. Receivers, same thing. Look, I think that he's a great handsy guy. I think he catches the ball great with his hands. I just don't know if he's going to end up being the number 1 wide receiver when we go back and look at this. Matter of fact, I'm pretty confident he won't be. I think he's scheme dependent. And that's a big knock for me, but you're not hearing anybody talk about that. I think he's scheme dependent. All right, before we get into quarterbacks, trade rumors. Let's get into some trade rumors.
Is Eric on screen?
Well, I don't know. What happened to Eric?
Eric,
I don't see him on screen.
I can hear him. Jack, can you hear?
Where'd he go? Did he drop out and come back? Well, his Eric, your auto gain is off, so you got to check your PC volume now too. Yeah, he dropped out and came back, apparently.
Oh man, those things always happen. Hey, real quick, I do want to give a shout out to, again, first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody for leaving some very nice comments on the interview I was able to do with Jason Harmon. And man, it was an enjoyable conversation. Much appreciation to Will for the platform to do that. I sent Jason a text yesterday as Will and I were talking, and Will just said some nice things about Jason. And I had text Jason, and he said, you know what? I just text Mitch, our mutual friend. He said, and told him how crazy it is. He got us connected. Love what you guys are doing. And I think that obviously 99% of that is you guys is to Will and everything he's doing here. So just an awesome networking. Shout out again to Jason, and thank you to everybody for listening and for the nice comments.
Yeah, Jason's a cool cat, man. I reached out to him the other day, just talking to him about maybe popping in for pre-draft show. And obviously mentioned the Rockhound Cancer Foundation and shared the link with him. And he, I was just saying, hey, if you want to help spread the love and spread, the awareness, well, then I'm not going to say what he said back to me because it's pretty personal. But yeah, he immediately shared it and, shared a personal tragedy story with his family, and then became a $50 donor right away. So Vikings, I mean, look, I got to put it out there. Like, I gave him the skull love. Vikings fans, we have a few, content creators that we work with in the Vikings nation over there. So all good people. And that's what this is all about, right? So, again, where Caleb Williams is getting it wrong in our fraternity, in the world that we're in, media or content creation, it's great to be able to work across the aisle with other creators, other teams, and have a good working relationship. even within the Lions community and working with different Lions creators, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing multiple content creators coming together. I mean, if you look at even recent shows where I'm bringing in, All 22, who in my opinion is one of the best at breaking down positional groups and players. And that's because he's a former coach at, some of the highest ranks. He stays off camera for a reason, and I understand it now. And bringing in people like Paul Farrington or Big Blue, and guys that just have a wealth of knowledge, that love, what they do, and it's a seamless transition, working with each other behind the scenes too. That's what it's all about, man. That's what life is all about, is building relationships and not being negative. No hot air balloons over here.
Kevin Barr says that All 22 show was really, really good, and I concur. It was very well done.
So, Eric, what happened to you, man? Did you just get kicked out?
No, I lost power.
Oh, you lost power.
Yep.
Oh, lovely.
Power went out for about 10 seconds here. Everything went black.
You have a storm going on?
Nothing that I know of. It was perfectly nice when I came out this morning. Maybe somebody hit a power pole or something. But I'm supposed to have all my internet in the inside of the house is on battery backup, and so is my laptop. So I never should have lost internet. But everything went black, came back on, and hopped right back in.
Interesting.
Do you foresee, Eric, that later on when this show's all done, you're going to crawl in bed and cry? No, I'm kidding.
No,
No.
not today.
Again, I couldn't not say it. I just
Poor
imagine the way
Caleb,
Will,
man.
yeah, the way Will said it this morning, he's like, and then get in bed and cry. It's just, you got to have a laugh at it, man. It was awesome. But glad that you're back, Eric.
All right, so let's get into the trade rumors. So again, this highlighted, quickly again this week that the Lions are potentially looking to get rid of a couple of players. Now, this is the first time I've seen 5 mentioned. You guys know 8 weeks ago or so, and it's always 8 weeks ago because that's when I started talking about this time of year, the off season into draft season, where a lot of moving and shaking is going to happen. The first player that I mentioned was Kirby Joseph. Now, let me remind you guys of something. The 5th-year option is not due until May 1st. That is strategic in nature because the draft is always done before the end of April. So the reason why Brad Holmes has not picked up the 5th-year option on JMO or anybody else is because it's not due until May 1st. My thought process on this is pretty simple. I could go extremely deep into it, but I won't. Let me pull up Mike Payton's article here, because it started with JMO, and then I've seen it extrapolate into Craig Reynolds, Hendon Hooker. Of course, Hendon Hooker's been talked about forever. Who are the other 5, or who are the other 2? There was, I'll have to look it up.
As far as names of Lions people or Lions players possibly being traded?
Yeah, there was 2 others. So it was Hendon Hooker, it was Craig Reynolds, it was Amik Robertson, that was the other one, Jameson Williams, and Josh Paschal, and of course Hendon Hooker. So I've got the article pulled up now. This one's by Brad Behrman, where he highlighted the 5 and then also mentioned Mike Payton. But I want to highlight Mike Payton this morning. Big shout out to Mike Payton. Should be on the show next week during our pre-draft show. So we'll get to hear from him on what he's thinking. You guys know as well as I do, Mike likes to do some touchy subjects at times. And I think it's great to be able to stoke a conversation. And I think that's all he's trying to do, right? He's not a doom and gloom guy. He's just trying to have the conversation. And I think on the surface of it, what happens is fans, we hold on to our players, our team, and the guys that we're, the guys that we want to have on this team. And you can't ever imagine them not being on the team, I guess is where I'm going as a fan. right? You're
Emotional.
invested into these guys as a fan.
Mhm.
The business side is way different. And I don't think the typical fan, which I was always a typical fan up until probably 5 years ago, meaning I was just focused on wins, losses, the team, and following along. I wasn't going as deep as I am now, but about 5 years ago, I really started to dig deeper. I mean, I always looked at things differently. I always had different conversations. And I guess it really started because my dad every year would be, oh, we're gonna do it all. We made all these right moves and we brought in the right coaches. And it was like every 3-4 years we'd had the same conversation. He always liked every draft pick. And it would be on that car ride home that it's like, no, like that's not a good draft pick. No, this is a problem. And here's why. And it's funny because now when we look back at it, we can laugh about it. We can have good conversation about it. But that's your typical fan, right? That like Eric is all roses and rainbows and sunshine and eats a lot of marshmallows. So it's different for me where I'm more realistic in that I look at the approach from a business perspective. If I were having to make these moves, what would I do and why? And it's not that I know or I'm better than anybody else or any GM, because I'm not. It's just my own opinion. So let's dig into this article by Mike, and then let's open it up and talk about it a little bit. So he says, it's not that I want, and it's not what you want. Everyone wants things to work out with Jameson Williams and the Detroit Lions, but man, you can't ignore that Detroit just brought in essentially another version of Jameson Williams for a top 30 visit over the weekend. And they're talking about Texas receiver Matthew Golden. I will throw out another name, and I don't have the top 30 in front of me, but I think the more realistic comp to JMO is Isaiah Bond. And so if the Lions have brought him in, which I don't know if they have yet, that could be a player that you could bring in to essentially replace JMO as Isaiah Bond. So anyway, he says Texas. He brought in Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden, who's considered to be the second best wide receiver in this draft. I feel he's the first. He ran a blistering 4.2940, very similar to JMO at the NFL Combine, and he brings a lot of what Williams has brought to the Lions, but without some of the on-field issues like tracking the ball, which has been an issue for JMO, or even the off-field issues, right? He goes on to say that there's also the off-field stuff. For as much as we like Williams and as much as the Lions have told us they like him too, you can't ignore the suspensions or the internal affairs case that came after the Detroit police stopped him with a concealed weapon in November. Those things might not matter a lot to us, but we aren't the ones who have to pay him when it comes time to do so. Great point. At this point, he says it seems very unlikely that the Lions will sign Williams to an extension. And Lions general manager Brad Holmes said at the league meetings in Florida 2 weeks ago that the team was leaning towards a fifth-year option with him. The deadline to do that would be right after the draft on May 1st. If the Lions were to do that, they would have to pay him $15.49 million in 25, which is affordable. I think the Lions are absolutely probably going to do that. Can't say absolutely and probably in the same sentence. I believe the Lions will do that. And then if he balls out, you have to pay him even more than that, possibly as much as Amon-Ra St. Brown, in the neighborhood of $30 million a year. If the Lions were to take Golden with the 28th pick, roster roulette, they could then trade Williams and save a lot of money that they can then use to make sure that Brian Branch, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Jack Campbell, Kirby Joseph, and Aiden Hutchinson all get paid their top of the league extension when they are expected to get it. So while it would suck to move on from Williams, it makes sense financially and would be a huge help down the line. What would the Lions get for Williams if they move him? That's the question. If you're hoping for a first-round pick, that is going to be very unlikely. I'm so glad that he is using a realistic mindset here. JMO, as much fun as he has been at times, and as good as he is on breakout runs and, taking the ball the distance, he's not worth a first-round pick. Just go back and look at all the receivers that have been traded over the last couple of seasons. How many have garnered a first-round pick? Maybe none? Go look. If someone wants to look it up, go for it. A second-round pick, probably, I feel the same boat. I think a second and maybe a late day 3 pick for JMO makes a lot of sense. the likelihood is that the Lions would likely get something like what the Falcons got for Calvin Ridley. So there you go. He even went, to give us a little bit of info here. 3rd round pick and a late day 3 pick. Calvin Ridley is an amazing wide receiver. He also has a ton of experience. And I don't know that he has a ton of off-field issues. So the fact that you only got a 3rd round pick and a late day 3 pick for Calvin Ridley, you cannot imagine, anywhere where the Lions are going to get more than that. But maybe a 2nd round pick, maybe. And that's primarily because of his youth and because he would have 2 years left on a deal with a 5th year option. If it's extended to him next week, he would have this year and the 5th year, and he would essentially be paying him about $20 million for 2 years, which is a very fair rate to pay for a guy that could be a number 1 wide receiver on a few teams, but as a number 2 wide receiver with the explosion that he has and the explosives that he's able to produce, that's a small number to pay. So a team like the Jags could use a receiver to pair with Brian Thomas. Man, that would be scary. An offer, for the Lions to get Williams to be pick number 88 and 194. Jaguars get J-Mo. This allows the Lions to have an extra 3rd round pick in which they could use to score a guy like Michigan edge Josiah Stewart. I'm glad that he's aligned with me on this too, where I see Josiah Stewart and edge Oluwafemi Oladejo both in the 3rd round. Linebacker Pooh Paul, Virginia safety Jonas Sanker, or many other options. Those are all great options in the 3rd round where the Lions could be picking at 102. Things that need to happen to get to this point: Golden needs to fall to 28. That is unlikely. It's possible, but it's unlikely. We have his average draft position at 29.8 at this time, A to Z Sports. So Mike Payton's article there, let's break it down a little bit. Initially, Eric, what is your thoughts when you hear a potential trade for J-Mo? Give me the fan perspective.
I don't like it one bit. We've already invested so much into J-Mo. I mean, listen, we've put up with the suspensions. We've put up with him having a busted knee for a year and a half. It's time that the Lions see what they truly have in this kid. He was a number 1 wide receiver off the board talent had he not gotten hurt. Let's see what he's got. And we've seen flashes and more flashes as time has went on. And to me, this is pie in the sky. This is clickbait to me.
Well, it's not clickbait.
I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think it's a very good conversation, but I think that we need to look at this from the perspective of, could you pay? Okay, can the Lions pay 2 receivers $30 million?
No.
Okay, they can't. So then why? Let me ask you this: why would the Lions? We've got a breaking news here. We got Brad Holmes on the press conference. So
yeah, we've still got 2 years and pretty decent control over him.
Right now we have 1 year.
Yeah,
we have 1 year. They have to pick up the 5th. So I guess the answer is if they even pick up the 5th, what is your course of action after that if you don't extend them?
Well, if you don't extend him, you have to
franchise,
or you let him go after the 5th year.
So that's my point. Like, why would you want to let go a guy that you drafted at number 12 overall? Mm-hmm. You would not just want to let him go in free agency. You might get a comp pick back in the 3rd round for a first round pick that you then traded up to get, by the way. You moved some picks, and I'd have to go back and look at what we traded to move up, but it wasn't cheap. So you're going to give away all those picks and the player in free agency after 5 years, and you would have invested at that point at least $30 million, $35 million into the player who would have given you 3.5 seasons of work. Yep. So you basically paid him $10 million a year and a first round pick plus a few other picks that you invested to get him. I think that would be the dumbest thing in the world to do, to just let him walk in free agency. That is why a trade makes the most sense. But
not a trade this year.
Okay, so what if he gets hurt? What if he busts up his ACL or Achilles this year? Then what?
Yeah, that's what ifs.
But the point is, if you pick up the 5th, which you're going to have to do, and he busts up a knee, Now he's done for 2026, and now he's worth nothing because he'll have 2 major injuries, and no team is going to touch him with a 10-foot pole.
Oh, just imagine if you do trade him this year and he goes on to be a perennial Pro Bowler.
Well, he will potentially.
Yeah. No.
But I think that's not, and I don't think that's the conversation. I mean, we expect JMO to be JMO.
Yeah.
Like, I'm expecting that. What I'm saying here is, I think it's a great conversation because the old Lions would let these guys go in free agency. You get nothing in return.
Yeah.
The new Lions are trying to be proactive in how do we manage his cap? How do we manage our future? How do we get all of our core guys signed? So let me throw out 3 scenarios. One, which I didn't plan these, so I'm going to right off the top of my head. One, you sign JMO to a 5th-year option, and then you let him walk in free agency after 2026. You get nothing in return. You've spent $35+ million on the guy for 3.5 years of service, and maybe he pulled in 2,000-yard seasons. Maybe you won a Super Bowl in 2025. Great. It was all worth it. Okay, number 2, you pick up the 5th-year option. You trade him. You end up getting a 2nd-round pick and let's say a 5th-round pick in return. You pick up Matthew Golden or maybe an Isaiah Bond and a Jaden Higgins, and Jaden Higgins ends up being a dominant wide receiver. Maybe not as fast or as speedy, but maybe a dominant wide receiver that's putting up 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns a year, doing the same thing that JMO is, but yeah, he's not as speedy. You can still find another speedy wide receiver to help you in that direction, or help you in that position, which they're going to need. So now you've shrunk your cap. You've got a guy that's producing for the next 4 or 5 years, right? At least on a cheap contract. The third scenario would be you'd have to pay JMO to keep him. It's going to cost no less than $25 million a year. So you're going to pay him $15 million next year. You franchise him, that's going to cost you $22 million in 2027 at least. He's going to be pissed, right? It's not going to be a good situation. Or you have to pay him $25, $30 million a year. So now who are you going to sacrifice? Kirby, Brian, Laporta, Campbell? Who are we going to lose? Because you could lose 2 of them because you can't afford to keep them all at that point. These are all the real scenarios. It is so much easier to replace a wide receiver in the draft and to get production out of them than it is to replace a damn good middle linebacker or a top-of-the-line safety. It is extremely hard to replace those positions. Or tight end. I mean, just look around the league. How many tight ends are elite? 5? And the Lions have 1. It's extremely hard to replace it. How many safeties are elite? 5? Maybe. The Lions have 1. 2, actually. So I think that those are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. And that's why, in my opinion, an article like this that is outlining and throwing, everything out there to say, hey, look, this is the reason why. Because I'll take it one step further, and then, Riley, I'm going to ask you. He also outlined in a tweet the projected amounts for Hutch. 4 years, 160. Kirby, 4 years, 82. Branch, 4 years, 82. Gibbs, 4 years, 89. Laporta, 4 years, 80. Williams, 4 years, 120. Okay, so that's 40, 20, that's 60, that's 80, that's 100, that's 120, that's 150. That's $150 million for those 6 players, plus the $170 million you just spent. The Lions are over the cap on 12 players. We got 12 guys on a football team. That's it. It can't be done. It's impossible. Brad is a hell of a drafter, but it is impossible for us to keep all these players. So from the fan perspective, I get it. Like, why would we want to get rid of them? But at the same token, how do we make the team as good as it is now stay that way and not sacrifice putting ourselves in cap purgatory and losing some of our all pros that we already have. I think that if you were to weigh all these options on the whiteboard and you put the issues that JMO has faced and his production and how much he's getting paid versus taking a rookie and developing him with what you already have on the team, you could essentially, I'm not saying you have to trade him this year. You could pick up the 5th. You could keep him on the team this year. And then depending on how he's doing or depending on how that rookie is performing, it's a trade deadline trade to a team that is not going to make the playoffs. And then you set yourself up for next draft. Or you trade him next offseason on that 5th-year option where he's going to have to probably do a contract to be able to be traded. Riley, what are your thoughts? Then I'll come back to you, Eric.
Well, I love Trace in the chat too. She's adamant, repeated that, hey, listen, JMO's not being traded. But again, I think it's a good discussion. I know Mike Payton takes a lot of heat. I like Mike a lot. I've done an interview with him as well. Excited to hear that he'll be coming on the show here with us. But the hard thing for me with JMO right now is I just don't know what his value is or what it would be. Right.
There you go. It's right there. It's on the screen.
Let me see.
If you're talking about future value, it's right in the neighborhood of what Amon-Ra St. Brown is being paid. Look, I think that JMO's going to have to stack another 1,000-yard season to even be mentioned in that light. But continue on.
Yeah, I guess for me, the value more being not what he's going to be paid, but what he would warrant in a trade. Like if Brad Holmes said, all right, guys, JMO's available. Who are you getting? A first? Are you getting a second? Are what would you be getting? I think obviously I love Jameson Williams. I do want to see, because of each of the years that he's been in the league so far, it seems like he hasn't had a full offseason. So want to see this year a full offseason where he's healthy, he's not suspended, he's had 1,000-yard season now, his role in the offense is defined. I'm assuming John Morton has plenty of ways drawn up in his mind as to how he wants to utilize him. But it does get into the discussions again of the roster roulette. Do you plug in the next guy? Do you maximize the value? And that to me is where I'm hung up. I don't know what Jameson, would a team give a first for him? Would you get a second? Would you get a third? Is it worth a second? Is it worth a third? I guess that's kind of where I'm at with it.
So, oh shoot, what's going on here? So I guess the thing for me is the value is it is what it is. It's not a first. I think it's a second and a 5th, or a second and a 6th. And it all depends on what happens with his contract. And if the Lions only picked up the 5th or they haven't. Like if they haven't picked up the 5th, you'd have to trade him immediately on draft night. They would have to pick up the 5th. I don't know that would happen. I think that Brad would probably try to pick up the 5th before a trade would happen. But the good news is JMO doesn't have a say in that. So Eric, now that I've explained my thoughts on it and kind of extrapolated it down the road a little bit, I mean, what is your overall feeling on the situation?
Okay, so here's what I do if I'm Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes has been way too good at drafting. He's way too good. He's seriously too good. We can't keep everybody, right? Can't do it. So JMO, great that he's doing better. I really want to see what he can do. And so this is what I'm going to do. If I'm the GM, I'm going to put the 5th-year option on JMO. We're going to see what he does this year. And then next year, I have the tag and trade option after the 5th-year option. So if I want to see the next 2 years what he does, I can. I have the whole next 2 years to evaluate this player. I'm going to see what he does. I know it's only going to cost me $15 million for that year in 2026. I'm set. After that, I can tag and trade him. I can franchise tag him. And JMO, I'm sorry. With all the crap we've put up with, if you complain about getting tagged, you're a hypocrite. Because we've had to put up with all the crap, the suspensions, the drug suspension, the gambling suspension. We were there for you when you didn't even know the playbook. You just knew to go along. You know, he thought he was going to come in and it was going to be so easy. Well, it wasn't. And he had to learn an actual NFL offense and had to learn that just running fast wasn't everything. Well, he has no room when it comes to being tagged to say anything. So he's the one player I think that the Lions would use a tag on. And then you have the option to tag and trade him or actually make him play on the tag. So you can keep your numbers where you need to keep your numbers. And if you trade him then you trade him then. But maybe he'll have more value after two more years in this system, putting up 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns a season.
So, I mean, the tag and trade idea, yeah, it's viable. My question is, how many times has it happened?
Not very many.
You know, well, I just want to make sure that we're clear on this. How many tags and trades?
Even if it's never happened, at least it's an option.
No, it's definitely an option. It's definitely an option. I just know it doesn't happen very often. It's an option. It's always an option.
I don't know if it's actually ever happened before.
No, it's happened.
But that for me, that would be my stance. I would have a very hard line drawn in the sand with JMO. Any other player, no. But with JMO, yes. Funny Boy Rody just did a $4.99 super chat. Jordan Addison is better than JMO, though. I disagree.
Oh, Jordan's pretty good. I mean, they're pretty good. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't even say that they're a 1-for-1 comparison. Jordan's good, but he doesn't have the breakaway ability that JMO does.
No.
See, that's the biggest thing. Like, if you lose JMO, yeah, you are losing a guy that can take the top off of defense.
I got a phone call I got to take real quick.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's
okay.
The thing too,
so Bradley, go for it. What were you going to say?
No, I think you're exactly right too. That's the dynamic of, you know, on a talent scale or a talent level, you can find a player like a Jameson Williams, but that particular dynamic of what he brings to this offense, that's what you'd be giving up. So if you, and you know these guys better that are coming into the draft, I believe Matthew Golden's your number one wide receiver, right?
Say that again.
Is Matthew Golden your number one wide receiver in this draft class?
Yes, he is. It doesn't mean that he's going to be drafted the number one overall. It doesn't mean he's going to be the first one taken off the board. But right now, he is my number one overall wide receiver in this draft.
Would you say his play style is more comparable to St. Brown or to Jameson?
It's tough to say. I mean, St. Brown is a slot guy.
Yeah,
I'd have to go back and look at Matthew Golden's snaps by snap production, which, like I said earlier today, I don't have that information in front of me to really be able to speak to it. But, But when you watch his tape, he's productive. I mean, he's uber productive. He can get separation, and you can't go 1-for-1 with a JMO and a Golden. They do different things. They have different aspects to their game. The thing that I really like about Golden, though, is how he works back towards the quarterback. He never leaves his quarterback in a bad situation.
Yeah, sure. And that's so exactly like what you're saying. It's talent levels may be similar or in the same area, same ballpark, but it's just the unique dynamic that JMO brings to this particular offense. I'd be stunned if they traded him. It's not unfathomable, but I'd be stunned because I feel like you want to run it back with this offense, and hopefully Jameson's an even better player than he was last year. If he can, exceed 1,000 yards and be on the field every game, I think his value to the Detroit Lions is at an all-time high right now.
So just going back a little bit, in 2020 there was 14 franchise tags used. In 21, there was 10 franchise tags used. In 23, there was 6. In 24, there were 8. And then this year, Did we only have like 2? Wasn't there only like 2 franchise tags that were used this year? It was extremely light.
Let me see if I can pull that up.
So I guess what I'm not seeing is how many tag and trades were done. It looks like I don't see any. I mean, that would take a lot of deep research to find, but I don't see any other than the 2 transition tags that were used between 2020 and 2024. Doesn't necessarily mean that they were transitioned to a different team, though. I don't see any tag and trades. It is such a lowly used option in the NFL. It really muddies the water. But let's get into the rest of these players while we're waiting for Eric. I don't think he's off the phone yet. So the other players that we're going to talk about. Craig Reynolds. Now, Lions obviously brought him back on a cheap 1-year deal. According to this article by Brad Berriman, it says that Reynolds is a clear culture fit for the Lions, and he's a symbol for the do whatever is necessary to help them team. But the mantra that Dan Campbell professes, obviously, is Craig Reynolds. I mean, Craig Reynolds is that guy. The question is, the minimal role that he has played, you can fill that role pretty much anywhere in this draft. You're going to be able to refill the Craig Reynolds role. Will that player be the same as Craig Reynolds? Here's my hot take. The Detroit Lions will find their second version of Sione Vaki in this draft. And he will play on offense. Right? He will. But I think that Craig Reynolds might end up on the practice squad, might end up cut at the end of training camp. I think the Lions, in what is a fairly deep running back room in this draft, I think that Craig is kind of on the outs. I think that Sione Vaki is the clear number 3. And I think that the Lions are going to position themselves to replace David Montgomery after this season. So I think that your next, Sione Vaki type player that is, hell of a special teams guy, but someone that can also produce heavily in the offense will be found in this draft. The question is where. And I think you could definitely find him in the 3rd round. Like I said, it's a fairly deep running back room, and you're going to find out this weekend what my final mock draft is. I got a lot of things to put up. Ever since we got credentialed to do the draft, I had to switch gears. So a lot of the content that I planned for this last couple of weeks, it's on the back burner. I got to make sure that I'm ready for draft night and draft day because that's the most important thing. So next year, we'll just be prepared to be able to do it all depending on where the draft is. I don't know where the draft is next year, that if we go to it or not. So Craig Reynolds, what do you think?
I think that you are spot on. I remember having the thought maybe a month ago or so, just thinking like, man, are we embarking on David Montgomery's last season in Detroit? You start considering the possibility of it. The whole Sonic Knuckles thing, we love it, right? But there's going to be change. There's going to be turnover. And that room there are guys that are expendable. And I think you said it perfectly. Craig Reynolds, we all love him. I mean, I'll never forget that play at Tampa when he sprung forward and gave that block for St. Brown. He's just been reliable. You know what you're going to get with Craig Reynolds. His contributions to the team have been probably underrated, even by diehard fans of the Lions. But I do think you're right. I do expect to see Sione Vaki have more of a role this year, and then you're just roster roulette. You're just filling and recycling and replenishing that cupboard. I think you're spot on with that one.
Okay, so earlier to the funny boy Rhodey comment that Jordan Addison is better than JMO. One, I'll just say I disagree. 2, the stats prove that, obviously, with what JMO does in explosives and 1,000-yard season, which Jordan Addison hasn't had yet. And 3, let me give you a big shout out this morning and get you in on JMO. We'll get you JMO. You're probably not even a Lions fan, but Maybe you are. I don't know. I haven't seen you in here yet. But thank you for dropping in today. Appreciate it. Thank you for the super donation. Where is my JMO? Where is it? Come on. Somewhere in here. There we go.
Looks, throws, it is complete. There goes J-Mo right side. He's got the angle to the end zone. 25-20, 15-10, 5, end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. J-Mo flies into the end zone, and the Lions extend their lead.
Okay, moving on to the third individual on this article. Really number 4, but the third one that we're going to discuss is Amik Robertson. So Behrman goes on to say that we have been adamantly against the idea of the Lions trading Robertson, as I am too, at least before the draft, despite multiple analysts trying to advance him as a trade candidate. Now, there may be a time when it makes sense to trade him, but that time is not right now. This is what Behrman is saying. That being said, if the Lions add another cornerback in this draft and early in this draft, might be the writing on the wall, maybe. Or the Lions are just looking at getting really deep, and you might see some of the lower hanging fruit bounced, from the DB room. I would say this, just like Brad Holmes has said, quote, "You can never have too many corners," end quote. I believe that wholeheartedly. You can never have too many corners. They seem to get injured probably the most, right next to running backs and wide receivers. That's like the 3 most injured positions. You can never have enough, and I think the Lions typically carry 5 corners and 5 safeties, somewhere between the neighborhood of 9 and 11 in the DB room. Maybe you have an extra one this year, but if we walk it out, it's Terrion Arnold, it's DJ Reed, 1 and 2. It is Amik Robertson down at the nickel. That is a scary DB room to start the year. Love it. Ennis Rakestraw, he's your floater. He can play all 3 positions. I don't think he's as good down in the nickel, but in a pinch, he could play it. He can cover Terrion. He can cover DJ Reed. So that's your top 4 right now. I believe that the Lions could add a corner in this draft. I'm not out on the fact that there's some really good corners later on in rounds 2 and 3. Again, it makes more sense to me. I know I'm a little bit greedy when it comes to the draft and how I want to, approach it and get players. Brad's got to stack picks. Who quoted it yesterday? Someone said that after the first round, it gets meaty in the second round, which is kind of like what I say, like the meat of this draft, 26 to 45. I believe that. That's where you're going to have a ton of really good football players going, and positions are going to go in bunches. Like you could have 3 wide receivers, 3 corners, 3 defensive linemen all in a row. Bang, 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 bang. I could see that happening in this draft. Once the shoe drops and one receiver goes, is going to be 2 or 3 in a row. There could be a couple of trades. Right now, when you look at our depth chart, Lauren Strickland, Morris Norris, Eric Hallett, Rock Ya-Sin, Avonte Maddox, Khalil Dorsey, Thomas Oliver Stantley. I would say that Terrion Arnold, DJ Reed, Amik Robertson, Avonte Maddox, and Ennis Rakestraw are fairly solid. Gonna make the roster as long as they don't get hurt and they play well. The only one that would be in question is Avonte Maddox. I don't think he's going anywhere. Rock Ya-Sin, Eric Hallett, and Thomas Oliver Stantley, not Morris Norris or Strickland. Those guys are going to be battling for that 6th spot. But that doesn't mean that the Lions don't bring in another corner for that 6th spot. And then the rest of these guys end up on practice squad. Potentially, as long as they want to come back. I think the Lions could grab a corner. But I don't think trading Amik is the answer. Especially when you want to hit the ground running. The reason why they bring back the same team is so that they can hit the ground running with the same team that knows each other. Amik's not going anywhere. I would bet a jersey to somebody he's not. At least not this year. This is the last year of his deal. Yes, it's probably sucks for Amik that he doesn't have an extension. Maybe a small extension gets done. Maybe. But I don't think he's being traded. Eric, let me kick it to you now that you're back. Quick thoughts on Craig Reynolds. My thought was the Lions will find their next Sione Vaki in this draft. I think that the running back class is deep enough where you can find a good running back in the third round. I still think the Lions are going to maneuver and pivot themselves to gain more draft picks at the top of this draft in round 2 and round 3. And then secondly, to back that up, Amik Robertson trade. I don't think it's going to happen. I do think the Lions could find a corner in this draft, but everyone's going to have to wait and see what I put out for my final mock. But I'm also going to do something a little bit differently this year, is I'm going to put in my vertical alignment of the draft and where I see positions as far as where I think the Lions would draft positions. And then secondly to that, the players that I think make sense. And it's kind of an ebb and a flow, and I'm not going to write every scenario out, in the world. It depends on what happens before the Lions pick. Like if this player gets taken by another team, well, then that bounces, this player up. I can't write all those scenarios out. That would just be foolish. That'd be way too much work. So what do you think on those two situations, Amik and Craig?
Hey, Jay Cruzen just gave us a $5 super chat and wrote, okay. So the Craig Reynolds thing, I think that Craig is kind of on thin ice compared to anyone else on this team. He signed back for a very, very low price, way cheaper than anyone thought we could get him back for. And if someone falls in this draft, Brad could very well take him 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. If there's a really good guy that falls in this draft, don't be surprised if Craig is on the streets. And who's the other one you asked about? Amik Robertson.
Yeah.
So Amik Robertson, that's kind of a unique situation. I think he was kind of a glue guy for us this past year. He kept us going when no one else could, Ennis Rakestraw was hurt. Carlton Davis was hurt, but who picked up the pieces and stood up when no one else could? It was Amik Robertson. He was the dog. He was the guy that did the dirty work. So I know he's on the last year of his deal. Could we get a new deal worked out with him? Possibly. But would not surprise me if Brad pulls the trigger and grabs another corner in this draft. Would not surprise me at all. He can never have enough. But I wouldn't see us trading him away. If he ends up leaving and we get nothing for him, it's not the end of the world.
So just to recap, do you think that Amik is going to stay this year then?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, because he's not on the roster next year.
No.
Yeah. And then as far as Craig, look, I think that you can replace Craig anywhere because he's not a high production guy. He's a high value guy to the team because of his culture and his fit. But as far as production, you can find that anywhere. There's some really good running backs in this draft. I just think that David Montgomery, I didn't hear if you said anything about David Montgomery, but
no.
I feel like this could be the last season for him. It's going to be really hard to keep him around again because of financial implications. But the Lions could find, his replacement this year. I'm not saying that I want to see that happen. Maybe David sticks around. What is he entering? Like his 7th year? So he's not young.
Yeah, he's got to be going into year 7.
He's not as young as he used to be. And I would like to see the Lions obviously add another power back size-wise that also has, a little bit of speed. David Montgomery's speed has been fine. So if you could replicate what David does as far as height, weight, speed, maybe a little bit bigger, right? A little bit more of a bruising back. I think that's what the Lions really need because I'd hate to see him go back to a fullback. I can't stand the fullback position. I think that you should always use a linebacker for that position or one of your tight ends. Using a fullback on a roster is a huge wasted roster spot, and I'm glad the Lions got away from that quickly. Riley, I'll kick it to you. Your thoughts on those two?
Yeah, so just again to reiterate, I said earlier too, I had that thought like, man, are we about to start the last year of Montgomery here? But dude, what a phenomenal signing that was. And I was like most after DeAndre Swift, who you loved his style of play and his ability to make a big play. And then Jamal Williams led the league in touchdowns that year. It was a surprise to see that Brad Holmes washed that room out. And then we quickly realized, oh, I mean, Montgomery and Gibbs, we just have to enjoy this upcoming season with those guys, because the whole Sonic Knuckles dynamic, Montgomery's just such a damn good player, obviously, but yeah, the wear and tear starts to happen, and won't be surprised if they bring somebody in to replenish that, because they want to keep Gibbs' snap count very, careful, right? You don't want to overuse Gibbs and drive him in the ground. Prolong him as long as you possibly can, like an Alvin Kamara who's still playing at a high level. So, but I do agree. These are the realities of things. Amik Robertson, Craig Reynolds. I think Amik for sure, this might be his last year in Detroit, but you're also right, Will, where there's continuity. You sign that guy to be a leader. He still is a leader. You got to bring him back for sure. And then maybe Rakestraw takes over in a bigger role next year, or you draft somebody this year.
Yeah, I believe that too. That you definitely need to start looking towards the future, and that's why some of these draft picks, some fans kind of throw their hands up like, what the hell are we doing? And that's like, well, you've got to think about next year. It's not just 25.
Yeah,
you have to look at 25, 6, 7, 8, and then yes, the next 5 years after that. Even though some of these players may not be on the roster, you have to be prepared, and that's why it's so hard. Now, this next one, Josh Paschal. Here's what Behrman had to say. He said 3 years into using a top 50 pick on Josh Paschal, you would hope to have more than 5 sacks and less than 15 games missed from them. I don't agree with that. Again, I don't think that sacks are the defining stat line for defensive linemen. I don't think that they're a defining stat line for defensive end. I don't. I think that pressures, I think that tackles for loss are just as important. Now, Josh Paschal was obviously put into a situation last year where he had to play defensive end, a position he hasn't played since his Kentucky days. He's always been somewhat of a hybrid guy, inside-outside guy. So he's kind of a tweener from a body size perspective. And I think that, when the Lions took him at, 46th overall, last year, according to Behrman, he was credited with 34 quarterback pressures. And last season looks adequate, but his pass rush win rate of 5.5%, according to PFF, was outside the top 100 among qualified edge rushers. Let's put that back into perspective. He was playing a position he hasn't played in a long time. He had to adjust. And being on the big end side of things, you're not generally asked to always get after the quarterback. It's set the edge and contain. Same thing can be said, like Shamar Stewart and Nick Scorton from Texas A&M. They were in a defense that was an unselfish defense, just like the Lions is, an unselfish defense. I think the mentality needs to be scrapped right away that this is a NASCAR defense, that you're getting after the quarterback on every single play, that you're blitzing consistently, because look what it did to us in the Washington game. It completely ruined the game for us. You just can't do that. You need to set the edge. You need to contain the running backs and the quarterback. Outside of that, tackles for loss, quarterback sacks, they will come, right? But it's more important at the end of the game that you have one more point than your opponent. It's not that you had 6 more sacks than your opponent and you lose the game, which happened last year. It's one more point than your opponent and you'll win the game, right? It's how you control the tempo of a game. If you're constantly selling out and just trying to get sacks and you're having these selfish stat lines build up, you're not going to win football games. And I think that that's been evidenced across the league, the teams that do that. For instance, the Philadelphia Eagles were extremely unselfish in the Super Bowl, as well as the playoffs. There's a reason why they were rushing for and winning. I think that, the more and more people listen to that fact, it makes more sense. I think Riley's got to dip out for the day.
Sorry, I was just standing up to grab something for my dog quick.
Oh, okay, got you.
Go on. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. So injuries were not a factor for Paschal in 24. 2 of his 3 missed games was the minor discovery that he had during an annual screening, annual cancer screening. He simply did not stand out in any capacity as PFF's number 106 graded edge rusher out of 119 qualifiers. So again, I think that what Brad Behrman is saying here, it's kind of missing the mark, in my opinion, that he's not an edge rusher. He can be. I expected him to be the number one edge rusher on that side. They brought back Marcus Davenport, and Brad Holmes even mentioned during some of the, I think it was league meetings this year down in Florida, that he said that, being able to utilize Pascal a little bit more on the inside was the plan. So I think that now put Marcus Davenport back as the first tier edge rusher on the right side of the defense. I don't think that you want to put Josh Pascal into a box that he was just an edge rusher last year, because that was not his position. And I thought he played damn well for what he was put into. Riley, I'm going to go to you first because I know you got to go. What is your thoughts on Josh Pascal?
Yeah, so again, I saw the stat the other day. I think the Lions, the Lions finished 5th in pressures last year, I think, in the entire league.
I think so, yeah.
And my thought was, when I read it, I'm like, man, I'm just hearing the gripes of, more edge rushers, more sacks versus, man, the team was with all of the damaged and injured players that we had, you still finished in the top 5 in pressures. And I think Pascal's a part of that, man, where they've invested in him. He's got to be extremely motivated. I think you keep him this year, see what happens, and then it's easy. The decision will kind of make itself as to what you do with him in the future. But I do want to see what he can do for the team this upcoming season for sure.
So I'll say the same thing that I've always said about, some of the other, the other players is, what is their ether value, right? Kirby Joseph's ether value is high because he just had one of the best seasons ever for a safety. So the ether is high, the value is high. Well, just like the stock market or the housing market, you sell high, right? You buy low. Josh Pascal's on the opposite end of that. His ether's not high because he was put into a position that he doesn't normally play, and it was on a defense at that time that suffered a ton of injuries. We were still a top 5 defense 12 weeks into the season, and that was after losing more than 8 or 9, maybe even 10 defensive players to IR. How was that possible? Well, it's possible because, one, I think Aaron Glenn manufactured some pressure when we needed it. I think he overutilized the blitz at times, and there was games that I'll die on my sword on this one, that you don't blitz an RPO. Like the teams that were successful against Washington, the teams that were successful against any team that runs the RPO did not blitz. They didn't. And if they did, it was few and far between. The Lions didn't have a choice at times because they didn't have enough top-tier players at positions to be able to win one-on-ones. And even when our players are in, some of those players don't win one-on-ones. So I think that, it's a very unique situation. I'm not going to blame Josh Pascal for being put into a situation that he wasn't normally in. I think he did just fine. Now, do I want him as my number one? No. But given the situation the Lions are in this year, hoping that they draft an edge rusher, yes, then I think that makes the most sense, is that you're able to put in a rookie as your number one opposite of Aiden. Just depends on who we get. So, Eric, what do you think about Pascal? And then, Riley, do you got to go?
Yeah, I'll head out now. It's as good a time as any.
All right, give us your final 30.
Another great show, man. I'm so excited for the draft next week. When do you guys head down to Green Bay? Tuesday. Oh man, I'm so excited. So fired up that Will and Eric will be there, and just looking forward to it. And I hope everybody has a phenomenal, what day is it? Thursday.
Yeah, the only Detroit Lions centric podcast inside the draft room, Radio Row. We are the only Detroit Lions podcast that will be there. There will be, I think, there'll obviously be other Detroit Lions media. But we will be the only podcast. From what I understand, a lot of the Detroit Lions media will be at Detroit doing the draft coverage from there. So maybe next year we do that, depending on where the draft is.
Will and Eric will be from Green Bay. I can't wait, man. I'm so excited. Next week's like Christmas. I'm fired up for it. So
it used to be our Christmas every year before Christmas, but hopefully not anymore. All right, we'll see you later, Riley. Have a good day, man.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll see you. It's now the Will and Eric show. Eric, what do you think about Pascal, man?
So Pascal, he's kind of unique, you know. I think he was thrown into the fire last year, and we got to see what he could do, but not as at his natural position. And this year, I think you're going to see a different Pascal. He can go more balls out because he's not going to be in on every single play. He's not going to be asked to play 90% of the snaps. He's going to be asked to play 15, 20% of the snaps on a rotation that he was supposed to be on in the first place. And then if someone goes down, he can be a reliable starter. He is not going to be asked to be the guy, be the starter this year. Is he ready to step up into that role? Possibly. But he's not going to have to be the guy. He's not going to have to be the starter. So I think he's going to be more into a natural position this year, which is going to help him. And that might make him shine even more. He may have his best season yet just by being able to utilize him in the way that the Detroit Lions wanted to in the beginning. He's finally healthy, finally knows what he needs to do. He's not going to be asked to do too many things because I don't think that we are going to have a season where we're going to have 20 guys on IR. The odds are against it. So that was like an astronomical thing for it to happen last year. I just don't see that happening 2 years in a row.
I would agree. And I wanted to highlight Peter Van Laarhoven's statement here. He says, the biggest issue for us fans really comes from the fact that we have no idea of what each player is dealing with just to get on the field and how this is hampering or how it is that hampering his true abilities. It's a good comment. Like, same thing like I said the other day, and thank you, Peter. The same thing I said the other day about, just people in general. When you meet me, or if you get a chance to find me somewhere, you could look at me and never think for one moment that I'm battling anything. Nobody knows how difficult it is to wake up, how, the type of medications you have to take monthly, daily, every 3 months just to be able to do this, right? Just to be able to fight through it. You'd have no idea that I battled cancer. You'd have no idea that, all the other little things that I'm going through. But that's because I don't wear it on my sleeve, right? And I think that good football players, guys that are built with mental fortitude, look, they're not wearing it on their sleeve either. They go out and produce. They go out and do their job. They don't let all the little nicks and cuts get after them. Same thing for me, man. I'm going to hustle, and I'm going to continue to hustle as much as I can each and every day to try to provide the best content I can and to make sure that we're doing things the right way. And I feel like that is something that is lost today, that, we don't give enough credit to what people are going through. And that's why it's like, why be negative? Why be negative? Because you just never know. There's so many stories out there, and I could bring up many, but I won't. I'll save that for another time, but maybe at one of our events this year. Lastly is Hendon Hooker. Look, we've beat this one to death, man. Hendon Hooker is not worth a darn thing. And I'm not saying that to be mean against the guy. I'm saying that because he has zero production. He has zero time, really, as a starter or even a backup in the NFL in legit games. I think that the fact that we moved around and spent a few draft picks to get him in the third round, was it the third or was it the fourth? I think it was the third round. He's not worth a third round, right? I think that if you get a 5th, 6th, 7th round for Hooker, you'd be lucky. So why would you trade him when you don't know what you have in Allen or Fromm? You know a little bit more about Fromm because he was around last year. I think the only way that you're trading Hooker is this. The Lions are in the third round, and they've manufactured an extra pick. And now they want to take a quarterback. And they feel like they have a pretty good pulse on this quarterback to be a future backup. And they maybe feel good about Allen, that he'll be able to fill in nicely right now. That's where I think Hooker goes, is that the Lions already have the pick identified, that they're not going to trade Hooker to move up to grab a quarterback. I think that they would manufacture a trade just to get something back for Hooker, whatever it is, because you can't carry 6 quarterbacks into training camp. You can't. You can't carry 5. There's just not enough room. I think you're kind of maxed out at 4, personally. And that's Goff, and that's Fromm, and that's Allen and Hooker right now. You add another one, that means that you're missing out on an opportunity to evaluate another defensive tackle, defensive end, corner, safety, whatever, receiver. I think that the only way that Hooker is moved is if they've identified they're in a position and they're going to try to do something to get something back. It's just not going to be a lot. Otherwise, there's no business in moving off of Hendon Hooker. Eric?
Yeah, I don't see anything happening with Hooker. Other teams, they have not seen enough out of him. What's he played in 3 preseason games?
Maybe. Yeah.
That's it. And then like when he did get in and played a little bit in the 2 blowouts, what was it? Dallas and the Titans game. So I watched him in the Titans game. He had 2 passes for a total of 17 yards. Didn't light up the scoreboard, but they didn't make him do much. He was just handing off the ball a bunch. He only attempted a couple of passes all season, and it was in garbage time, which should have been for, big yardage, but they weren't. And a couple of his passes were off the mark. So he just hasn't been able to show anything. He hasn't even been able to show his wheels. Everybody says, oh, he's got the wheels. He can light them up with his feet, but he hasn't even really been able to show that at all either, because he's still getting over torn ACL. And
I think he just takes time. I mean, I think the ACL's healed, but just like, Brad has said that no matter where Hendon Hooker has been, it's always taken him a little bit of time to get adjusted. And that Vols offense was so abnormal. It's kind of throw it up and go get it kind of offense. And I mean, they use so many weird formations that you will not see. You got guys split out way wide, nothing inside tight. And it was just weird when he was there. I don't know what they did last year, but it's just a very awkward offense that does not translate to the NFL at all. The footwork, the mechanics, the timing, you name it. And I want to talk about probably 5 quarterbacks. I know we don't really have time to do all 10. We'll talk about 5 real quick. But real quick, I want to mention something. So, when I was just talking a minute ago, Gina put in the chat how she's battling cancer right now. And just like this chat always does, you guys are paying attention. You're reading the comments, and immediately you're giving Gina some love and giving her your prayers. And I really appreciate that for Gina. And Gina, like I said in my comment, man, you got to use that grit, right? You got to keep battling and be a warrior every day. And that's the reason why I developed this new apparel company that is essentially going to be used to help out Rockhound Cancer Foundation. It's called the Warrior Thread. And the reason why I used Thread and Warrior together, I was doing a little brainstorming with some of the members in the mod and chat room. Being a cancer warrior, you're battling every day, right? Being a cancer survivor is you've survived the initial onset of cancer. You've gotten past it, but you're still a warrior every day. You're still going to battle through things that is post-cancer survivorship, right? For me, it's not having a thyroid and having to deal with all of the meds and the thyroid levels, and it messes with everything. Your heart, metabolism, everything, your joints. So I'm still a warrior. I have to battle through it every day. And so for you, when you get through the chemo and everything else that you're going through, you're going to battle. And that's what being a warrior is all about. Now, the thread component is that when we, are wearing our warrior thread apparel, you are now connected. One thread, one warrior. We are all connected by the same thread as warriors against cancer. And that's the thought behind it. that's the goal behind it, is to have a very good supporting cast of people that are wearing and rocking the apparel, but all of that energy and all of that, the funds that get built are going to go into the Rockhound Cancer Foundation to then help people, right? The goal is to be able to help people. And the reason why I thought it was so important to do that is, Megan and I both battled cancer at the same time. The financial implications of one person going through cancer is bad enough, but two at the same time, I couldn't even tell you guys how expensive it was, right? And how expensive it is. Thankfully, health insurance has gotten better. And some of the things that have been outlined over the last 12 years, thankful to some of the administrations, has helped in that area where pre-existing conditions no longer exist and your insurance has to cover you. Or like with breast cancer, you can have augmentations and things like that the rest of your life that's covered. It's disfiguring for women that have to go through that type of stuff, and it's demoralizing to most women. And so I sympathize obviously with all of that. Being a warrior and being part of the Warrior Thread community is huge. And so I would just say that for all of you out there that are listening now and in the future, just to visit the store. It's warriorthread.myspreadshop.com. Take a look at it. We'll be putting out more stuff, but it's all to benefit people in the future so that we can help, whether it's covering someone's rent for a month or someone's utility bill for a month or transportation back and forth to visits. That's the goal. And then also doing early, detection screenings is the goal. So Gina, appreciate you. Appreciate what you're battling through, and we're with you. Man, it's always so hard to talk about. Let me get ads kicked off here for the rest of the day. I did wind them all the way back, but let me just get them off. We got close. Like the stream real quick. It'll help us. It'll help you. We got to 63. We'd love to see it get up to 75 if we could. And again, appreciate everyone for your super chats. I've got one other one that I have to shout out real quick. I think it was Cruisin'. Wasn't it Cruisin' in there that just put okay?
Yeah.
Or something like that. And I just responded, okay. I don't know what the okay is for, Cruisin', but we're going to give you this okay.
Intercepted. Kirby Joseph coming back to the 40. Kirby to the 45. Kirby to the 50. Kirby into San Francisco territory and taken down at the 42-yard line.
All right. Let's dig into some quarterbacks. Now, this was supposed to be a little bit of a longer section or segment. We're up against it for time today. Like I said, I'm going to try to get in and take care of a few things between now and Sunday to get some more content out because we're missing a lot. I kind of have like 4 or 5 main categories that I look at when I evaluate quarterbacks. And I'll just start with number 1, which is size and build, physical attributes, right? Size and build. When you analyze quarterbacks, height, weight, overall physical frame, it kind of gives you a glimpse into who they are now and who they could potentially be over the next 2 to 3 seasons. Looking for players, obviously, that possess the prototypical size to the prototypical build and how they can withstand the rigors of not only the college season, but the next level, which is obviously a next level for a reason. Prototypical size for me is about 6'3.5" for a quarterback. Prototypical weight is about 205, 210. Obviously, the wingspan, the longer arms is not as necessary. I think that it depends on how you throw the ball. Somebody like Jared Goff has, bigger wingspan. He has a longer release at times because he has to wind up and throw. The shorter arms, obviously, they're like little rockets, man. They just wind up and go. Then you want to look at arm strength and velocity. Obviously, the ability to generate power and powerful throws is critical for any quarterback to be able to get that ball out quickly. And then it allows them to reach all areas of the field. You want to be able to stand on your 2 feet with your general wind up, set stance, and then release the ball. If you have to take a step into it all the time, you don't have that time. It's a quick 3-step drop and it's out. And arm strength and velocity means that you don't need as much time to release the ball to get it down the field. Of course, athleticism and mobility is part of it. Doesn't mean that you have to be a dual threat. Doesn't mean that you need to be necessarily mobile. You just need to be able to escape when you need to escape. But it's really just getting into your set and your stance, getting through your projections, and being able to stay very athletic and mobile and bouncy so that you're ready to release that ball. A quarterback's ability to move effectively, whether to extend plays or escape pressure, is obviously needed. Again, you don't need to run a 4-4. You don't need to run a 4-3. You can be Jared Goff and run whatever he runs, 4-6, 4-7. As long as you can get outside the pocket and maintain leverage away from a defender and get out of bounds, that's all you need to do. Throwing skills is the number 2. Accuracy, arm mechanics, working through the progression, throwing from different platforms. So on platform, off platform, sidearm, right? There's all these different things that we see from really good quarterbacks. The ability to throw the ball on target with accuracy is the most important. Arm mechanics, analyzing a quarterback's throwing motion. Does he have any hiccups in it? Is he a little herky-jerky? Sometimes shoulders do different funky things, and it drops an arm angle, which gives you an imperfect throw. So analyzing their arm mechanics is big. Working through the progressions, I think, is the next most important thing to accuracy. Being able to see the field and process quickly, getting through those progressions is extremely important. Different platforms, again, the ability to throw effectively from different locations and angles. I think that this has been accentuated more and more and more over the last 10, 15 years of the NFL, finding some of these quarterbacks like Matthew Stafford, who was one of the curators of the sidearm. Not that he was the first one to do it. He just did it at a much different level than others. The third thing is decision-making, football IQ. I would say this is probably the third most important. At the initial onset of evaluation, like you have to get through the athleticism, the mobility, and the physical attributes before you can even get into football IQ. Because if they don't meet the first two, then football IQ doesn't even matter. But if you only have football IQ and you don't have the first two, well, then it doesn't matter either. So football IQ is pre-snap recognition, post-snap decision-making, pocket awareness, field vision, all of those things. The fourth main thing for me is intangibles, leadership, toughness. Are you going to cry after the game? Or are you going to figure out what the hell you did wrong and get better? Mental fortitude is huge. Football IQ is top-notch in this area of intangibles. So that's it. Those are the main 4. Eric, let's start at number 5, I guess, on the big board. And I'm going to do it a little bit different. And I'm throwing a curveball at you, but I'm going to do a little bit different than what I've done in the past. And that is, I'm going to go with Yahoo Sports today.
Okay.
I'm going to go with their number 5.
All right.
Actually, yeah, we'll go with their number 5, which is Riley Leonard. Now, they have Riley Leonard as a consensus number 5 overall. He's the Notre Dame quarterback. Posted up a 66.2 completion percentage, 2,092 yards, 16 TDs, 5 interceptions. Quarterback rating of 140.8 out of Notre Dame. Now, he's probably a little bit higher on Yahoo Sports Board than others. But who did you have at number 5?
My number 5 was Ewers. So my number 5 was Quinn Ewers out of Texas.
Okay, explain to us a little bit about Quinn Ewers.
All right, so let me get back to him here. I just switched up. Come on, computer. There we go. So Quinn Ewers, in 2024, he was second team all SEC at Texas. He tied for 6th in the FBS with 31 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and 2 rushing touchdowns. He started in 14 of 16 games, missing 2 games with an oblique injury. He threw a touchdown pass in each of his last 27 games. A couple of his strengths, displays willingness to go out and compete through pain. And then his performance in road games at Alabama and at Michigan stand out in the last 2 seasons. His weaknesses: he can be fooled from pre-snap to post-snap looks by a defense, and he needs better eye manipulation to hold safeties and linebackers. And this gentleman, Mr. Ewers, He was a junior. He's 6'2", 214 pounds. He had 30 3/4 inch arms and 9 3/8 inch hands. And I did not have any numbers from him from the combine.
Okay.
He was my number 5. I liked him. I got to actually watch the Texas Michigan game, and I thought he had a pretty darn good game that game.
So that was, I'm sorry, Ewers, right?
Ewers, yeah. He throws a pretty ball.
Pretty ball.
Yeah, it's a nice spiral. Like when he's throwing over top of a safety or a corner, the ball just has a nice trajectory up and over the defender.
All right, let me try to throw him up on the board real quick.
So I take it you did not have him in your top 5.
Nope.
All right. Mine's a little different. I didn't go by anybody else's list. I went for my own list on this one.
Okay.
And I had Riley Leonard at number 7.
Okay, so Quinn Ewers. Here's the draft report by PFF. Texas product makes things happen out of structure. Ewers is ranked 5th in the FBS last season, 89.2 PFF passing grade on the scramble drills. He also had the second highest big-time throw rate. Habit of bailing on clean pockets limits his ceiling. Tendency led to the 11th most quarterback faulted pressures in 24. Look, you've got to be able to stand in there and deliver. Why he would take off out of the pocket is beyond me. But despite Texas having one of the best offensive lines in the country, he just bailed. 2025 NFL draft season, we don't need to go over that. Here's his stats for 24. PFF overall grade 72.5, is 37th overall. Big time throw percentage, he was ranked 20th. Turnover worthy plays, 46th. Adjusted completion percentage 75.8. That's really good. Pressure to sack rate 23.2, is ranked 47th. It's not great. PFF clean pocket grade 81.2. Even though he dips, he still managed to manage a 81.2 clean pocket grade. Under pressure 43.6. This is where obviously the wheels fell off. Ranked 40th. Background, he's 6'2", 210. I mean, real close to prototypical size for me. Strengths, he's out of structure playmaking ability, arm talent. And weaknesses, pocket presence, which we've already discussed, and anticipation and decision making. So exactly the things that I was just talking about, right? In the few things that I identify when grading a quarterback, he's not meeting, some of those things that I look at, which is the anticipation, the decision making, the pocket presence, the out of structure or off structure plays, off platform, and the arm talent. So he's a little bit lower. He's my number 8 on my top 10 list. He's my number 8. Right. What I had for number 5, get my other list up, and then let me get this open. This one's probably going to shock a few people. Maybe. Maybe not. I had Mr. Tyler Shuck out of Louisville. Now, in a lot of consensus boards, he's probably right around 10. I don't have any other boards in front of me, but Shuck's age and experience stand out. He's a little bit older at 25, and that is going to be a detractor for some of the NFL scouts and NFL teams wanting to take him, obviously, early in the draft. I see him probably closer to a day 2, middle of day 2, maybe even a day 3, possibly. Could be taken early. We could get a surprise here. The NFL may not be too big of a stage for Shuck. I don't know why his name is pronounced Shuck, but that's what I'm going with. Although he has his deficiencies, such as play under pressure, Shuck brings experience and a mental processing ability that could allow him to step into the league right away. Again, this is according to PFF. Here's his grades. Overall 7th last year, 87.4, big time throw percent, 5.1. Turnover-worthy plays, 1.8%, which is really solid. That means he's not turning over the ball. It's not his fault. 1 second here. Adjusted completion percentage, 75.1, pretty solid. Pressure to sack rate, really great, 9.3%. PFF clean pocket, 92.3, fourth in the league. And under pressure, obviously a little bit better than Ewers at 58.5, ranked 13th. And here we go. Background. 25 years old, like I said. He's going to be a little bit older. 6'5", 225. This guy is prototypical size all day. Started his career at Oregon. Didn't fully take over as a starter until his third season, backing up Justin Herbert. It's a pretty good backup to be behind for his first 2 seasons. And then after the COVID-shortened 2020 campaign, he transferred to Texas Tech. So I think that when you look at the fact that he's a little bit older, this is why. COVID, remember I've mentioned COVID a few times about some of these players, that it is essentially made them stay in school a little bit longer. And so for some of these quarterbacks that come out a little bit older, we have to take these things into consideration. Now, his strengths, obviously arm talent, processing, weaknesses, dealing with pressure, which even though he was one of the best at dealing with it, he still had a little bit of a problem at times. His age, like I mentioned. So those are the things that PFF are saying. I'm not going to go into everything they're saying. Here's what I've got on Mr. Shuck. Man, I wrote a lot. I can't say all this.
I had him at number 6.
Really good. Yeah. So real close. Now, he's a resilient quarterback, I think, in this draft. I think he's been more resilient than most. 7-year collegiate career. He played in 3 of the Power 5 schools. I think that reflects a player that has remarkable determination and versatility, being able to learn from 3 different styles of offense. He's coming into the league, in my opinion, with that high football IQ because he's been across the league and learning, vastly different processing. So being that his career at Oregon started behind Justin Herbert, he got to learn from another really great, quarterback in the NFL at, today. I think that Herbert's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I think that the fact that, injuries kind of derailed Shuck a little bit at Texas Tech where he struggled to find some consistency, he battled through it. And I think that it really proved how transformative that he was after going through a little bit of, time where he had to navigate, some choppy waters. He thrived in this Jeff Brohm's pro style of a system, which again, that pro style of a system is what is going to give him an edge at the next level. Not everybody is in a pro style offense. He delivered his first complete season as a starter. He threw for 3,195 yards, 23 touchdowns. He led the Cardinals to signature victories in upsets over Clemson on the road, be that as it may. 266.3 passing yards per game, ranked 2nd all-time in Louisville history. And then also Pac-12 champion. He led Oregon to a conference title in 2020. The pro-style success obviously excelled in that system. He threw, again, almost 3,200 yards, 23 touchdowns. Senior Bowl standout. He earned top quarterback honors during the practice week from the national team defensive backs. Resilience. He overcame injury setbacks, obviously the whole COVID thing, transferring to 3 different Power 5 schools. Arm talent. This guy has impressive velocity. All 3 levels of the field, right? Short, intermediate, and deep, particularly on deep crosser and seam routes, which a lot of teams tend to use in today's offense in the NFL. Very clean, compact release. There is no jerk in this guy's arm. Off-platform throws. He alters arm slots and release points effectively. Athleticism. He is a plus athleticism athlete, in my opinion. He extends plays with his legs. I'm going to give you my mock or my comp. It's Josh Allen. I think that Tyler Shuck reminds me a lot of Josh Allen. Versatility. This guy is really familiar with both the spread and the pro style concept, which is going to give him, again, that versatility at the next level right away. Decision making. I think that I mean, he delivered a career best last year, 23-6. So he had 23 TDs to 6 interceptions. I think that really showed an improvement in his career up to that point, where the first season he really kind of he had some challenges. So he was able to improve upon that quite a bit. Play action expertise, like this is the NFL. Play action. He thrives in structured systems. It really emphasizes, timing throws and vertical shots off of the run action or play action pass. Few weaknesses: durability, a couple of collarbone injuries, and a broken fibula that limited him to only 42 games across 7 seasons. That is my biggest concern for this guy. Those are major injuries, and shoulder shots tend to happen often to quarterbacks when they go down kind of awkward on a shoulder. So I'm worried about those collarbones popping back up. Mechanics under pressure. I think his lower body mechanics tend to break down when he's under pressure. I think he gets a little bit scattered, and he needs to be more decisive. Like, he needs to just get rid of the ball or make a move. Processing speed. I don't think this is necessarily a weakness, but he tends to lock on the primary read. That is something that is teachable and coachable, but from something that is deeply ingrained in you, it's hard to shed. So that's another major concern for me. You cannot lock onto a primary read in the NFL and expect that a corner is not going to jump your route. Pressure performance, we've spoken about it, I think, enough. He needs a little work here. If he walks into a very good offensive line, he's going to be just fine. But if he's into at the next level, a team that doesn't have a very good offensive line, those holes, if they get, opened up and he gets pressure, he's going to struggle. I think he thrives in a structured offensive system. Think of Jared Goff here. Very structured offensive system. If it leverages play action concepts, I think it's going to help him create rhythm and timing. If you want to look at some really good tape, I think his standout performances against Miami, Clemson, and Virginia really highlighted his ability in the higher pressure situations. So those games, for whatever reason, he just took it to another level. And maybe that's who the Tyler Shuck really is, but there's plenty of games where I think that you can see his accuracy and decision-making kind of broke down as well. Overall, I think his potential to become a quality NFL starter will happen by his second or third season. But then he's going to be 27, 28 years old. So, yeah, he can play, into his 30s. I'm not as worried about his age because it wasn't anything other than injuries that kind of set him back. So that's my number 5. Number 4. Who did you have for number 4?
Oh, let's see. Who did I have at number 4? Well, this is going to shock a lot of people.
Maybe.
I put somebody you don't think at number 4. Shedeur Sanders. At number 4.
Now let's understand something. Are these where you think they're going to be drafted, or are these overall?
No, these are just where I think. This is not. I do believe Sanders will probably be the second one taken off the board. He's got the most background, but I just believe with all his baggage and everything, if I was a GM dealing with that circus, I would focus on the first 3 guys instead. I think there's 3 other guys that might deserve to be just a little step above him. Now, he could end up being the best pro out of all of them, but just all the pomp and circumstance that comes with him put him down my list. He's number 4 on my list.
Okay, I'm trying to get his profile up.
So he was 6'1.5", 212 pounds, 31.5-inch arms, 9 3/8-inch hands. In 2024 at Colorado, he was second team Associated Press All-American, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, first team All Big 12, finalist for the Davey O'Brien Award, the nation's top QB, set school records with 64 career passing touchdowns, led the FBS by completing a school record 74% of his 477 passes, ranked second with 353 completions and a school record 37 passing touchdowns with only 10 interceptions. fourth with school record 4,134 passing yards, and he started all 13 games with 4 rushing touchdowns.
Okay, so here's Shedeur Sanders' PFF profile. They think that he's going to bring excellent accuracy into the NFL. I do too. I will tell you that I have Shedeur Sanders as number 2 on my top 5 list. Temporarily, I'll put out my final list this weekend. Constant pressure tends to haunt him. He was forced to play under constant pressure at Colorado. They did not have a great offensive line, but I think that it even speaks more to his ability and off-platform and being able to escape and make plays on the run. Going back down here to look at his grades, he was third overall PFF grade, 90.9. Big-time throw percentage, 5%, ranked 14th. Turnover-worthy plays, this is huge, right? 1.3%. This guy is not making mistakes. Adjusted completion rate, huge, 81.8. Pressure to sack rate, he needs some work. 20.1%, ranked 19th. Clean pocket grade, though. You give this guy a clean pocket, he's going to carve you up, 94.1. Under pressure grade, 64.3, the best of the 3 that we've already looked at so far. Background, he's only 23 years old, so he's a little bit older than some, and he's younger than others. 6'2", 215 pounds. He is very close to what I consider to be prototypical size. And by the way, my prototypical size comes from an average of all of the quarterbacks in the NFL over the last many seasons. Before he joined the Buffaloes, though, he played a couple of seasons at Jackson State. Now, this guy has transformative ability. And what I mean by that is he turned around 2 programs. It is not common to see a young athlete, as young as he was, going into a Jackson State that was terrible and turning it around and winning as much as they won. And they also won, was it a MAC? What did they win? I forget what they won. Whatever championship they won. But then going to Colorado and pretty much doing the same thing. I mean, turning around a program that has been desolate for wins for years and turn that program around quickly. Strengths, accuracy, avoiding turnovers, 100%. High-level play within structure, yes, I believe that. Weaknesses, velocity, I'm not so sure on this one that I agree with that one. Bailing from clean pockets, so kind of like Tyler Shuck, he kind of did the same thing, but he was under a ton of pressure. So I'm not going to use that against him just yet. I'm not going to go to my number 4. I'm going to tell you what I have here about Shedeur Sanders, and that is, like I said earlier, there are 4 main categories that have categories within categories that I evaluate quarterbacks on. And Sanders, in my opinion, stands apart from the others in this class in arguably the most important 2 factors of these categories. That is anticipation and accuracy. The stats, the over 74% completion rate, and the game tape do not lie. Sanders' journey. He began at Trinity Christian High School, 47-5 record, 12,627 yards, 166 touchdowns. Then he goes to Jackson State. He earned the Jerry Rice National Freshman of the Year honors. He led the Tigers to a perfect SWAC record. It was SWAC, not MAC. SWAC record. His successful transition to then the Power 5 at Colorado further validated his ability against elite competition, although challenging at times, and especially at the Alamo Bowl against BYU, it revealed some areas that he still needs to improve on. He completely rewrote the record books at both Jackson State and Colorado. How impressive is that to do? A young athlete, like I said earlier, being able to, completely reshape both of those organizations. Over 13,000 passing yards, 121 touchdowns, and get this, 23 interceptions is nutso for statistics. In his final season, I think that he demonstrated both brilliance and resilience at Colorado. Again, he set the Colorado single-season record, 32.30 in passing yards, 69.3 completion rate. I think that his ability to elevate his game in the critical times and moments of the game really stood out. His strengths for me, elite processing speed. I think that he's one of the best in this class, if not the best in this class. He demonstrates exceptional pre-snap diagnostic ability. I think that that's partially because obviously his father being in the NFL and everyone that has surrounded him, that he's around nothing but NFL athletes, have helped him to do these things, right? To be able to recognize these things at such a young age. I think that he's an NFL caliber. I think he's at the NFL caliber for processing speed and making adjustments. Surgical. He is surgical with accuracy. Leading the FBS with a 74.2% completion rate tells you that. Poise, I think that under duress, which he was under quite a bit in 2024, that he maintained his mechanics and his accuracy, even amid all of the chaos around him. I think that he plays with a certain level of confidence, and his demeanor seems to always be cool, calm, and collected. Quick, compact release. I think that, again, his accuracy and his release are bar none some of the best. Weaknesses. Complex defense diagnosis. When some of the teams that he went up against, especially against BYU, they threw a totally different scheme at this guy. I think that BYU recognized a few things about his play, and they changed it up, right? They were throwing things at him that were confusing him, and he struggled. Overconfidence in his arm talent. I think that he sees a window that is open, and it's not. Now, at the next level, I think that he's going to have to adjust because these guys have elite speed and breakdown ability that if he sees a window, it's open, it's really not. And he's got to pull that ball back. Negative play frequency. So sometimes he takes too many sacks. He had 52 and 24, but I'm going to give half of those to the offensive line at least. Not all his fault. Pocket presence tends to drift backward under pressure instead of climbing the pocket and then escaping the pocket. Coachable, teachable, 1,000%. Quick summary, high ceiling prospect. I think he has the potential to evolve in a franchise cornerstone with the right coaching and protection. This is probably going to blow you away. I don't know if you did comps, Eric.
No, I did not.
Okay, so I comped Shedeur Sanders, Jared Goff. They are two very similar quarterbacks. Shedeur is not going to try to beat you with his feet. He's not going to try to be a dual threat quarterback. Yes, he's mobile, but that is not what he's about. He is a pocket presence quarterback that wants to beat you with his arm and his brain. And you put him behind a good offensive line, you give him a couple of good weapons and a running back like every quarterback wants, he's going to hurt you. I'm excited to see what he does at the next level. Who's your number 3?
Well, before we get to that, I got one quick thing about Shedeur Sanders.
Sure.
And there's a reason I put him at number 4. And this is the reason, because yesterday I watched one of your favorite movies, Draft Day. And if you remember, Bo Callahan in that movie was the consensus number 1 pick. Nothing wrong with him. But then they found out that his friends didn't go to his birthday party. Well, that's kind of the way I feel with Shedeur Sanders, is that he's just got a little too much of a circus around him right now. If you remove that circus, he's the consensus number 1 overall pick.
Interesting. So did they not go to Shedeur's birthday party?
Well, I don't know about that. I'm just saying that's the type of thing that I'm saying. Shedeur should and could and would have been the number 1 pick in this year's draft had he not had the circus around him. Yeah. All the off-field stuff. Correct? Don't you believe that?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, sometimes when you have an entourage and you're as famous as the Sanders family is, and the Sanders kids, and everything that they've had to endure, I think, yeah, it makes it tougher, to kind of grow up in a situation where maybe you just want to be left the hell alone to do your job. And it's almost impossible to get the camera out of your face because his dad is constantly putting cameras in people's faces. So yeah, it's tough.
Because I think it was last year at the spring game or some practice or something, they were off in Paris, him and his brother doing a photo shoot with all these funky costumes instead of being with their team. And I'm like, that's the Bo Callahan moment right there for me. So that is why I put him number 4. So now at number 3, one of my favorite quarterbacks in this draft, Jalen Milroe from Alabama.
Oh, Jalen Milroe.
Yes.
Well,
I like this kid.
I'm got to tell you, we are in line.
All right.
We are in line. I also have Jalen Milroe at number 3. Now, again, I want to remind you guys, that doesn't mean that this is where these players are going to be taken. It simply means that this is just where we have these guys
Where we like them.
in the hierarchy of, kind of best to worst right now in the class. Some of these guys may need a little bit more transition time to grow, time to learn, get installed into, the right system, learn the system. That's really all these rankings are. What were you going to say?
No, I was just saying that's these guys, this is where we like them.
So talk to me about Jalen. What do you think about him?
All right. So this guy, he played at Alabama. Brad Holmes like Alabama guys, right? So do I. And he's 6'2", 217 pounds. He's got 30 and 5/8 inch arms. He's got 9 and 3/8 inch hands. He was very productive. He's got a 99 in the athleticism score. Now, when he ran his 40 at his pro day, he blew everyone away. In 2024, he led the team with 726 rushing yards. Yes, rushing yards. He's ranked 8th in the FBS with 20 rushing touchdowns. Second amongst quarterbacks. He set a school single season record for rush TDs by a quarterback. He won the William V. Campbell Trophy for the top scholar athlete, aka the academic Heisman. And he started all 13 games, went 205 of 319 for 64.3%. He threw for 2,844 yards with 16 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. I would like to see those numbers a little higher and lower in those two categories. But overall, I think this kid has what it takes to play at the next level. And one of these teams that's looking for the mobile quarterback, I think he's going to fit right in.
So a couple of things that I forgot to mention with Jackson Dart. I am right now expecting that Jackson Dart is going to get taken in the first round. I think that we now have a possibility that there's going to be 4 quarterbacks taken in the first round. For the last 2 months, it has been 2 quarterbacks. It has been Shedeur Sanders. It has been Cam Ward. There's been some slippage on Shedeur Sanders from being the number 2 overall quarterback to possibly the number 4 overall quarterback, or even the possible number 3. I think right now, depending on how badly these teams screw up the beginning of this draft with trades or whatever, I think that Cam Ward will probably be the first off the board. But do not be surprised if you see a guy like Jackson Dart be the 2nd overall quarterback taken off the board. I do believe that there's going to be at least 3 in the first round, could be 4. And that would also include this guy, Jalen Milroe. So taking a look at Jalen Milroe's profile here, you can see from 2022 to 2024 right here, he's done exceptionally well. He's improved vastly. Played in 8 games in 22, 13 in the last 2 seasons. Very durable. Completion percentage or completions went up in every year. Attempts went up in every year. Completion rate stayed about the same between 23 and 24. 2,834 yards. I mean, almost identical to what he did in 2023. 16 TDs to 11 interceptions, though. So his interception rate came up. His passer rating went down. I'm not going to say it's overall all of his fault. The thing that worried me the most is in the game against Michigan, he really struggled. There were some things that Michigan threw his way that he just could not handle. And I think that he was under so much pressure that it really threw him off his game. He did not look comfortable. He looked hurt. And I almost think that Jalen Milroe was battling some injuries last year. I don't remember reading anything this year if that's the actual case. But you could just tell in that last game of the year, he did not look okay. He looked banged up. And I think that that's what really started to drive his stock down was that final game against Michigan. But I do not believe that that's who he is. I think that he is still a phenomenal athlete and going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Matter of fact, with respect to all of his peers in this draft, Jalen Milroe stands out as the most gifted quarterback in the class of 2025. His impressive combination of physical attributes, athleticism, and mental acuity, bar none, probably the best. So taking a look here, his adjusted comp rate, 72.6%, pretty solid. 5.2% big time throw, again, solid, not great, but solid. Deep yards, 889 or 892 on the season. Drop rate, 6.8%. That is not great that his receivers are dropping that many balls. Turnover-worthy plays, he was one of the worst out of my top 5 at 2.5%. That means that he was responsible for 2.5% of the turnovers. Screen yards, 340. Pressure to sack conversion rate, 18.5%. Not great. Average time to throw, 2.88 seconds. We talk about this all the time during the NFL season. 2.88 seconds is actually really good in the NFL. If you're getting the ball out that quick, it's going to be tough to get after the quarterback. Quite simply, this is what I got on Jalen Milroe. At the very beginning of one of my first mock drafts, I said that he was going to be the number one or should be the number one quarterback going off the board. It was a funny ha-ha to say, I don't see on this planet where Jalen Milroe doesn't get taken. And I also said that I think that at some point in the first 3 seasons at the NFL level, that Jalen Milroe might end up being the best quarterback out of this class. I'm still sticking with that. And I'm almost like 1-2 with Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart is also another Josh Allen type comp to me. So Tyler Shuck, Jackson Dart, both comp to Allen, whereas Shedeur Sanders, my number 2, comps to kind of like a Jared Goff, meaning needs the same type of system. But Jalen Milroe, he's emerged as a standout in 25. In my opinion, his pro day is what really set him apart. He showcased an extraordinary blend of physical attributes, athleticism, mental sharpness, and I really think it sets him apart from all the other quarterbacks. He demonstrated elite playmaking ability off throw, off platform in 2025. I think that he had an impressive resume, winning the William C. Campbell Trophy. He's often referred to as the academic Heisman. He took his studies extremely responsibly. Like, it was extremely important to him to maintain his future after football. He earned back-to-back team captain awards and honors at Alabama, which is really hard to do, especially as an underclassman. He had a very disciplined upbringing, thanks to his father, who was a Marine, and his mother, who was in the Navy. So his work ethic, his tenacity, I mean, everything about him just exudes confidence and structure. Like, he's very well built within structure. A little bit smaller, 6'1", 220 pounds, carries the weight, the speed, right? The explosiveness, can break tackles. He's more of that dual threat quarterback. I don't see him as a true pocket pusher. I think that teams that are going to take an option on him, or a team that takes an option on him, they're probably looking to get him more involved in an RPO system. I think that, going up against an SEC defense over the last couple of seasons really helped to provide him with the elite abilities that he has now. I actually had him drawing some comparisons to one of the first to do it in the NFL, which is Michael Vick. Michael Vick's versatility, his physicality, his speed, his awareness, his ability to make plays with his feet was undeniable. And I could see where Jalen Milroe kind of falls into that same bucket, if you will. So in today's NFL, he may not be as agile as Lamar Jackson or as, having the raw power of a Jalen Hurts, but I think that his dynamic dual threat potential and ability at the next level is undeniable. I think that that's where he fits. Cannon for an arm. The guy flings it 70 yards without flinching. He barely even moves his feet. Launch, his deep passes are precise. Very good spiral on the ball, very good technique. Forces defenses to really, respect his deep ball arsenal as well as his feet on the ground. Let's see. 2024, under Coach Kalen DeBoer, He had 36 TDs, 16 passing, 20 rushing. 20 rushing. I mean, my God. 3,570 yards of total offense. Standout performances. If you want some good tape, go watch Georgia. Go watch a Georgia game. 491 total yards, 4 TDs, 15.4 yards per carry against LSU. I mean, those are probably the two craziest games I've seen from a quarterback in a long time. Obviously, his strengths are dual threat capability. I try not to use that term often. I think it gets overused for quarterbacks, but he definitely has it. Strong arm. I mean, probably the strongest arm in the class. Athleticism. I mean, come on. The dude is athletic as they get. Leadership. Earning team captain awards as an underclassman speaks to the type of maturity and ability that he possesses to lead his team. I don't think that there's a better one in the quarterback class. Weaknesses, though, like everybody, I think his consistency in passing could require a little bit of refinement here. Decision-making at times, he can be prone to forcing plays, whereas, the smarter quarterback is going to identify it's not there and then make another decision. Those types of things will be worked out. His experience, look, he developed behind Bryce Young. I'm really surprised that he never cracked the depth chart above Bryce Young. He's definitely a better quarterback than Bryce Young coming into his rookie season. Injury concerns are the biggest thing, I think, for him. As with any dual threat quarterback and a guy that is running on the ground more often than they're throwing it, I think that, his risk of injury and frequent rushing attempts is what's going to be a concern moving forward. My little summary on this guy is he's gifted, man. He is physically gifted. I think he's capable of scoring anywhere on the field. And I think that his game really presents a paradox for defenses, that he has the ability to deliver the deep ball, and then he has the ability to beat you deep with his feet, taking it the distance. I'm so high in this kid, like I can't stop smiling about him, because I really think he is the number one quarterback in this draft. He won't be taken number one, but you give him 2 to 3 seasons in the right system, this guy is going to be special. First round talent, he'll be taken in the first round. Jalen Milroe, number 3 on my top 5 list.
All right. So my number 2 is Jackson Dart. And where did you have Jackson going at?
Round wise or on my top 5?
In your top 5.
Jackson was number 5 on my top 5.
Oh, okay.
And you had Quinn Ewers.
Yep.
Right. And then number 4, I had, oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Tyler Shuck was number 5.
Yeah.
Jackson Dart was number 4.
That's where we got mixed up.
Jalen Milroe was my number 3.
Yep. And then you have Shedeur Sanders at 2, and I have Jackson Dart at 2. So we have Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart flip-flopped on our lists.
Yeah. So I already spoke to Shedeur Sanders. Why don't you go ahead and walk me through what you thought about Shedeur Sanders?
Just that I think without the circus, he would be the consensus number 1. That's really it with Shedeur Sanders. He's got all the ability. He's got all the talent. He's got the pedigree. He's got everything. He's been coached since the time he was born by one of the best to ever do it. And so he's going to take coaching very well. He's going to be able to break down defenses very well. He's not going to have a problem in the NFL. He's going to be a good NFL player. The only thing that gives me pause is like I said, from draft day, the circus that follows this guy around. If it wasn't for that, dude, I truly believe he would be above Cam Ward. He would be the number 1 consensus. No even having to think about it, number 1 pick. Without any of the circus stuff, because his athleticism, his everything, he can decipher a defense. The kid's got all the talent in the world.
Yeah, I would agree. And I like your statement on, the circus stuff, that sometimes it kind of gets in the way. The thing that I don't like that's being said about Shedeur, which has been confirmed, he's not going into these meetings just kind of tuning out, like he's not interested.
Oh, no.
I think that you're never really going to understand somebody the first time you meet them. I think that the most important 30 seconds of your life, really, it's the most important 10 seconds of your life, is the first time you meet somebody. That first few words that come out of your mouth better be, who you want to be represented as a person, your actions, everything. So whether it's an interview, whether it's meeting someone for the first time, whatever it is, those first few seconds are so important to defining what that person is going to think of you. Not that it matters what other people think of you, but you're already being judged when you're walking up to meet someone or shake someone's hand. They're already assessing the book cover. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like, there is so much inside the book cover that people don't know. But if you screw it up on the introduction, they're never going to get to the middle of the story.
So I don't know if you watched Coach Prime on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, a little bit. Not all of it.
Okay. So I watched both seasons, and a lot of the stuff I spoke about, Shador and his brother going to Paris for this photo shoot when they should have been home doing other stuff. If other GMs are watching that, that's the only reason I could see him slipping at all. And I don't think it's an attitude issue. I think it's really just this, whether it's real or not, it's perceived that he has a circus around him,
Here's what I would say for any team. You would be making a very big mistake by evaluating what somebody's doing on their personal time that is being publicized, because some of it is for show, right? Some of it is part of the show, and that's their personal time to kind of goof off and do whatever. You don't always have to be straight-laced. And if you're always straight-laced and you're too rigid all the time, to me, that's probably a bigger turnoff. I would rather see someone that can kind of let their hair down, right, and be able to open up a little bit, and at the same time make good decisions. But you got to be able to have a little bit of fun, and smile. I'm probably a little too rigid. I'm always too focused, always under pressure, but that's just me. But at the same time, I think I'm able to go the other way too. And I think that it's important for teams to separate that, right? Who are you off the field is more important than who are you while you're doing something fun, or something that is business, that's for show. A lot of the stuff is for show. So I don't know. I wouldn't put too much in that basket, but you never know what teams think, Sometimes that's all they think. All right, number one is, I guess, on the same is the same for both of us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Pretty easy on this one.
Cam Ward. He is the consensus number one overall. It does not mean for me that he's going to be the best quarterback out of this draft class in 3 seasons. I'm just going to say it right now. His talent is undeniable. I think who he is as an individual is undeniable. I think that Cam Ward is a very, very, very special talent. Is he the only true blue chip quarterback in this draft? I guess that's what everybody else thinks. If I were to put my top 5 in one basket, I would say that 4 of them could all have the same NFL career. Tyler Shuck would be on the outside. I think it's that close between these guys. I just feel like some are getting a little bit more praise than others for whatever reason. But to your point, if you remove the Deion Sanders and the circus around Shador, and he is, let's say that him and Cam Ward trade places, right? That Cam Ward is Deion's son, and Sanders is whatever Ward's son. I think you're right. I think that then Shador would be the number 1. Unfortunately. So Here we go. Cam Ward, overall grade was the most elite grade out of any quarterback in the class, 92.9. 13 games played last year, 305 completions, 67.2%, 4,313 yards, 39 TDs to 7 interceptions, 119.9 passer rating. He scored all 4 elite grades in passing, deep grade, intermediate, and pressure. No pressure grade. But when he was under pressure, he struggled. Adjusted comp rate, 76.5. Turnover worthy play, he was the worst out of the top 10 quarterbacks, 3.3%. Screen yards, 467. Pressure to sack conversion rate, 15.9. He was kind of middle of the road for the top 10. Average time to throw, 2.93 seconds. That either means he has more time in the pocket or he was scrambling a little bit more before he released the ball. Drop rate, not great at 6.2%. 1,148 deep yards, 25% of his yards were on the deep ball. It's phenomenal. Big time throw rate, 6.3%. It's pretty good. It's not great. It's pretty good. Tell me a little bit about Cam Ward.
Well, in 2024, he was the first team Associated Press All-American, ACC Player of the Year, ACC Offensive Player of the Year, first team All-ACC, won the Davey O'Brien Award for the nation's top quarterback. He was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy, finished 4th in the voting. He led the FBS with a school record 39 passing touchdowns and ranked 2nd with 4,313 yards passing, while going 305 for 454 for a 67.2% completion percentage. He had 7 interceptions on the season. He started all 13 games and he had 4 rushing touchdowns. He set the second half of the team's Pop-Tarts Bowl loss to Iowa State. Oh, he sat the second half. And then he set NCAA records with 158 passing touchdowns in his career with Miami. And I think he stuck with Miami the whole time. Or no, he did not. He started at Incarnate Word, and then he went to Washington State for 2 years, and then went to Miami. So he's been around too. So multiple systems, multiple coaches, and yeah, none of these guys are going to one school and just staying there the whole time. Seems everybody is hitting that transfer portal nowadays.
Okay, let me get into Cam Ward here for just a minute. This will be the last guy we talk about for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Ward's journey overlooked at Texas high school. And he went from an overlooked Texas kid at Texas high school to a Heisman finalist. And I think that is nothing short of remarkable for what he's been able to do with his career. So West Columbia native, took the path of, like you mentioned, from Incarnate Word in Washington State, and that culminated in a record-breaking 2024 season at Miami, where he shattered multiple Miami Hurricane records. Ward's evolution from an FCS standout to a Power 5 sensation is highlighted by his impressive stats. 4,123 passing yards was a single-season passing record, previously held by Bernie Kosar, and a remarkable 35 touchdown passes also surpassed Steve Walsh's mark. He had an abrupt halftime exit from the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which had sparked some discussions among evaluators that maybe Ward's performance throughout the season more so spoke volumes about his potential, but what happened in the Pop-Tarts Bowl maybe sparked some other discussions about what he is like when he's up against pressure. Now, during the Miami season opener, Ward made headlines. He torched Florida, 385 yards. He set the stage for what was going to be a standout campaign in his final season. Now, he has the ability to engineer, game-winning comebacks, which was outlined in a thrilling 25-point comeback against Cal. The fact that they were even losing against Cal is beyond me. It showcased that he had some poise under pressure. I also think that it was a quality that NFL scouts eagerly will kind of get likened to, if you will, that, you watch a guy that is able to manufacture a comeback as well as what he did and what that means, for his ability at the next level. The fact that he didn't crack under pressure, I think it spoke volumes. He was a Davey O'Brien winner and the ACC Player of the Year. I think that he consistently, impressed and demonstrated that he was a fierce competitor and he had immense ability. He eclipsed 300 passing yards in 8 games and displayed a level of mobility that kept defensive coordinators up at night. Now, his strengths, arm talent, improvisation, processing speed, and accuracy, all lethal, all exceptional, and his processing speed probably was the most significant improvement that I noticed from year after year or year over year, in the way that he was able to recognize coverages pre-snap and then efficiently work through his progressions to make sure that he found the open receiver. Weaknesses, his reliance on his arm talent. Occasionally, he would throw off his back foot, which in the NFL, you cannot do. If you are throwing off your back foot too often, you're going to end up, spraying that ball or putting it in the hands of a corner. He needs to reset. So this is a mechanical thing. It's a mechanical breakdown. Whether he's getting a little bit rushed or feeling a little bit hurried, or maybe he's under a little bit of pressure and he's on his back foot, as opposed to just, quickly taking another drop step, resetting, coming forward and getting the ball out. He's just winging it. That's not going to work at the next level. I promise you. Once in a while, it'll work, but it won't work all the time. Ball security, he did have some concerns that persisted through 2024 when extending plays. 8 fumbles in 2024. Deep ball consistency. His accuracy, it wavered at times. And I think that throws beyond 45 yards is where his mechanics began to break down. See, I don't see these things in some of the other guys, right? Jalen Milroe didn't see this. Tyler Shuck didn't see this. Jackson Dart didn't see this. Shedeur Sanders didn't see this. Cam Ward, I did. Reading complex coverages, he's still developing. And I think that he needs more consistency in what he's seeing and what he's recognizing and being confident in that. I didn't see that in Shedeur. I didn't see that in Jalen Milroe. And I definitely didn't see that in Jackson Dart. What they saw, what they read, they were confident in, and they progressed, through that situation. They didn't, it's almost like he was second guessing himself quite a bit. And then things break down, and then you make bad throws. My overall summary on Cam Ward, look, he's got an impressive body of work, extremely resilient, since being overlooked to one of the best. Multiple comebacks throughout his performances, even at Miami. Consistent in clutch play. He demonstrates the ability, to be a franchise quarterback at the next level. I think that he really exudes a calm demeanor at times, but sometimes he's a little bit hurried. I think that his sidearm delivery and the ability to attack at all 3 levels on the field make him a dynamic threat for the next level. Just want to see him retain a little bit of poise and stay calm as much as he can, and then utilize that elite arm talent and the anticipation and the mobility that he possesses at the next level. I think he's going to be a special athlete. I really do. Just some of these little things can really creep up on you in a hurry, and that can sometimes be all the difference between a win and a loss. So Cam Ward at number 1 to end the day on quarterback rankings. My number 1 overall is Cam Ward. My number 2 overall is Shedeur Sanders. My number 3 is Jalen Milroe. Number 4 is Jackson Dart. Number 5, Tyler Shuck. Final 30.
Right. Yeah, my top 5 is pretty similar. I had Cameron Ward, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders, and Quinn Ewers. So just a little bit different. We flopped 2 and 4. And what are we on to tomorrow?
I'll have to look because I know we skipped one, right? Did we skip wide receivers today?
Yeah.
So we'll probably do wide receivers tomorrow. And I'll probably do wide receivers tomorrow, and then I'll do the rest over the weekend or something.
Okay, sounds good.
So, all right, cool, man. You guys have been great. Long show today. Eric, thanks for sticking it out.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys back here tomorrow morning. Now, next week's schedule will probably be on Monday, but we definitely won't be on Tuesday. And if we are on Tuesday, it would be like late Tuesday night just to say hi. Otherwise, we got a packed day on Wednesday. I think we're going to try to, bring cameras and mics to kind of capture the scene. Might even have an opportunity to interview Daniel Jeremiah. Who was the other one?
Joe Klatt, and there was one more. Charles in charge, apparently. So I'll take a look at it today to see
if we can still make the request, and if we can get one, I would love to be able to interview Daniel Jeremiah. I think that would be the one. It's gonna be tough, right? We might be able to be in the room or be around, but might not be able to have a one-on-one. So we'll see. All right, y'all. Go Detroit Lions. We'll see you all in the next one. And as always, man, be good to others and try to put others first, right? Try to do that once in a while. All right, take care. Bye-bye.